Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the Saiyan Fanfics, back with amazing fanfiction. This is the sequel one of What If Deku Got Harem from Konosuba. Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. As consciousness slowly came back to him, Izuku groaned before slowly opening my eyes. And he must say, having the first thing he sees be Eris' beautiful blue eyes was more than welcome. Eris-chan, I just had the strangest dream. All Might was there, but that couldn't be right. Izuku's words failed him again when he saw All Might's amused face sitting across the room. Taking a moment to check his surroundings, Izuku noticed that he was back at the mansion and the rest of his party was sitting around the room he was in, each in varied states of confusion. You're finally awake. You were trying to cross the border, right? Got caught in that Imperial ambush, just like that thief over there, he recited with a straight face before pointing at Kazuma. Well, there goes the heartwarming reunion. Okay, who told him to say that? I know for a fact that All Might isn't that much of a nerd, Izuku asked in annoyance. Eris looked away from him for a split second and he found his culprit. Of course. Well, All Might, is that really you? Why are you? For a moment Izuku could swear that he saw All Might blush a bit before coughing. Yup, it's me. You're probably wondering how I ended up in this situation. Well, that's a funny story, you see. Oh, for fuck's sake, how deep did this joke go? After you sacrificed yourself to beat Muscular, things got pretty hectic. That got Izuku's attention. He sat up wanting to be fully alert for this. No matter how comfortable Eris' thighs were, young Bakugo was kidnapped, apparently the enemy's second in command. Shigaraki Tamura was under the illusion that he could convert him to the side of villainy. Of course, this failed and the heroes managed to find him with the help of the police. However, things didn't go very smoothly from there. So the hand villain wasn't the leader. The only other person Izuku could think of that fit the role was All For One. Which meant, did All For One kill you? Izuku guessed. And to his relief, All Might shook his head as a negative. If All Might couldn't finish him, then the other heroes didn't have much of a chance either. No, we did fight though. However, by the end of that battle, the final embers of One For All had left me. I was forced to officially retire afterward. Thankfully, some of your classmates managed to find the area we were in and saved young Bakugo while I was busy fighting All For One. Their actions, while reckless, were the epitome of bravery. A smile came to Izuku's face. It was nice to know that his old friends were doing well, though he wished he could have been there to help. The reason for my death was much more mundane. There's that blush again. Was he embarrassed by the cause? You see, Class 1 was training for the upcoming provisional license exam. I visited the training area to try and help them develop new special moves and didn't watch my surroundings. And, oh no, please don't let it be what Izuku thought it was. Well, young Bakugo's quirk is as powerful as always. It's rather ironic that his most precise attack ended up sending the debris that killed me. At least All Might didn't seem to be mad about it, letting out a dry chuckle out of embarrassment for dying in such an anticlimactic way. That still doesn't explain how you're here. Eris-chan told me that only the young are given the option to come to this world. Did the gods make an exception for you? Izuku asked. All Might's eyes lit up as he transformed into his muscle form, surprising his successor. Correct. You see, young Midoriya, you've developed quite the reputation up in heaven. When I died, I was given the option to join you as a reward for all the good work you've done so far. Of course, I was given the same option as the other reincarnates. As you can see, I've chosen a second version of One For All as my gift. All Might exclaimed while flexing to prove his point. You know, he's a lot bigger in person. By the gods, you could grind meat on those, Kazuma muttered as he shamelessly stared at the pectoral muscles that were bigger than his whole torso. Darkness didn't do much better, muttering something about not being the strongest blonde anymore under her breath. Well, now that that's settled, what did I miss while I was out? Hopefully, nobody was too worried about him. Izuku wasn't exactly the type to collapse out of nowhere like that, so the other guild members might have panicked. Not much, we just told them that this was a code white and they understood. By Izuku's confused face, Darkness saw that he had no idea what that was. A loved one who was thought dead that shows up out of nowhere. It's surprisingly common among adventurers, right? RPG world. Sometimes Izuku forgets about that. Your friends also took the time to tell me about your adventures since coming here. And I must say I'm proud of you. At first I thought you'd have a rough time with it. You never were the best when it came to new social situations. That's an understatement. Well, I did have a lot of help. I doubt that I'd get very far without Eris-chan helping me out at the start. I had no real idea what I was doing, so having a local goddess as a friend was a miracle. Not to mention said goddess had a noble best friend who just so happened to also be an adventurer. Izuku's luck stat really was unfairly high. About that. I must say you've surprised me yet again. I already knew you were popular with the ladies, but I didn't expect it to go this far. In another world for barely a year and you've already got yourself a harem. A silent "that's my boy" was left unsaid for obvious reasons. though Izuku did blush profusely at that. It was one thing for random adventurers to congratulate him on that, but having All Might do it. Wait a second, what did All Might mean he was popular with girls back in Japan? Since when? Izuku asked him about it, catching All Might by surprise. You mean you never noticed? Young Uraraka, young Asui, and young Hatsum seemed to like you well enough. Young Uraraka being especially obvious. Then there's young Melissa who took a fancy to you after the first meeting. Too bad you two never stayed in touch, she grieved for weeks after. Well, you know, looking around, most of the party took this in stride, as if their leader being some kind of playboy was to be expected. Of course, Izuku felt bad about worrying and making his old friends and family sad. But it's been over a year, so hopefully they've moved on since then. So, what happens now? I mean, it's great that you two have been reunited and all, but what do you plan on doing, All Might-san? Kazuma brought up a good question. Obviously, he was welcome to join the party, but beyond that, nobody was sure what he wanted. Honestly, I'd love to keep my job as a teacher. The role has grown on me, and I'd like to think that I can still teach people a thing or two, even if it's a different world. Oh, and you can call me Yagi or Tashinori. I understand that the name All Might is a little impersonal. Izuku smiled at that. They could definitely do that. In fact, they were already looking for someone to train the newly formed city militia. I think we can come up with something. Though for now we should get you registered with the guild. That way you can access the party finances to get you set up, Izuku suggested, which got him a look of shock from All Might. I can't possibly ask that of you, young Midoriya. I can earn my money like everybody else. He tried to deny his successor's offer, but Izuku was having none of that. No, you've given me more than I could ever repay, All Might. Not only were you the first person to believe in me, you even gambled away the future by making me your successor. A job that I failed at. I owe you, and I refuse to just let that slide. This was Izuku's chance to pay his mentor back for everything he did for him, regardless of what All Might said. That's the first time you've ever yelled at me. Fine then, if that's how you really feel, then who am I to stop you? He bowed deeply in obvious respect and gratitude. Thank you for your help, I appreciate it. Izuku gave a sigh of relief that All Might accepted it. The rest of his party seemed to accept Izuku's decision easily enough, clear respect for his teacher in their eyes. And All Might, it's good to have you here. Really, beyond all else, that's what Izuku wanted to say most. This world was already struggling to hold one of them. The teacher-student duo might just break whatever semblance of a power balance was left. Guild Hall, 20 minutes later. Arriving at the Guild Hall, the party made their way to Luna's desk and asked for a registration orb. The actual orb, not just a single use of it. Izuku had a feeling that if the royal orb couldn't handle him at his maximum, then a regular one wouldn't be able to handle All Might. Thankfully, the commercially available ones were much cheaper than the royal variant. It only cost them 100 million Eris off pocket. Plus, All Might wasn't the only one being registered. Walbach was now officially a part of the party, and with Iris backing them up, they didn't have to worry about the legal repercussions of recruiting a demon general. The usual bright light came up and Walbach's new card was spit out. Luna took it and read it personally, trying to play off the fact that their newest party member was yet another goddess, but at this point most of the guild figured out just who Eris and Aqua were. Izuku's reputation as a legendary hero apparently made it believable. Walbach, class, Archwizard, level 75, strength 100, vitality 90, intelligence 500, wisdom 300, dexterity 125, luck 30. Haha, another monster joins the city's strongest party. And she's another goddess at that. Hey Midoriya-sama, what's with the new guy anyway? He doesn't look like much. Then again, that's what I thought about Kazuma, and look at him now. Ruffian, or is he's more well-known, Mohawk Bro asked from the back. A small oe was heard and promptly ignored. His name is Tashinori Yagi, though he also goes by the name All Might. He was my old teacher from back home who traveled here recently. And don't underestimate him, he's a lot stronger than he looks. Stronger than me, in fact. Yeah, nobody other than Izuku's own party and Luna believed him on that one. Izuku just sighed and signaled for All Might to transform into his muscle form, shutting up most of the laughter that was going on. Without much fanfare, All Might placed his hand over the orb and it immediately broken. Luckily, the card itself was made instantly, with the light show being the excess energy from the process. Now this really got people's attention, especially when the card was read aloud. Tashinori Yagi, class N.A. Level 1, strength error, vitality error, intelligence 300, wisdom 500, dexterity error, luck 100. Holy shit, he's a god. A random adventurer muttered, only for All Might's neck to snap towards him with a small glare. No, none of that. I got enough of that back in Japan. It was sadly true. A good deal of his world's population made All Might out to be some kind of deity that could do no wrong. Stain was just one of the more vocal of people. After introductions were finished, the party headed back towards the mansion in order to get their newest members settled in. Usually they would need to visit the local town hall, or similar government building for things like that. Good thing the party was the local government. Wait, you're telling me that I can keep doing hero work just like that, with no paperwork or sucking up to politicians? All Might was beyond happy upon hearing that. Sensei, we are the politicians. We give you full authority to uphold the law within this city. You don't have to worry about anyone giving you trouble either. Our party essentially run this city, and most of the people here respect us, and you by extension. Along with being a trainer for the militia, they decided on their way home that All Might would be part of the local guards, police. After getting his power back, the legendary hero wanted to get back in the swing of things. Hey All Might, how are your injuries anyway? When I was brought here, none of my scars stuck around. And if they did heal you, then why are you still? Well, All Might coughed a bit into his fist, thankfully without any blood. They did actually. My stomach and respiratory system have been restored, but that doesn't mean that their indirect effects were fixed too. 30+ years of quirk overuse and 7 more years of malnutrition from the lack of a stomach stuck around. So they fixed the unnaturally caused injuries, but their natural effects remain. Well, that pretty much decides what they were going to do tonight. This calls for a feast, Aqua called out, beating Izuku to it and with an infinite amount more energy than he had. In honor of Yagi-kun's arrival, we'll eat till we drop, and have plenty of wine too. All Might looked to his successor for help, but Izuku just shrugged. When Aqua got like this, few could stop her. It's not like he was against it either. An hour later, they were all fed and watered, enjoying each other's company as All Might and Izuku told stories of their world. It was mostly All Might going through a nostalgia trip, while Izuku corrected certain facts or added context with his near-encyclopedic knowledge of heroes. All in all, it was a great time. Everyone was in a good mood, though it was somewhat interrupted when Yun came rushing through the door, looking panicked while holding an open letter. Yun-chan, what's wrong? You look pale. Wait, I recognize the seal on that letter. What did the village write? Megumin asked in concern as Yun approached me. Izuku-sama, I need to have your children, she exclaimed for all to hear. Yeah, X9. I'm sorry, what? Izuku asked in complete shock at what Yun just asked him. Of course, she took his question literally and answered honestly. I said I need to have your children, she yelled at the top of her lungs. Again. Okay, Izuku realized quickly that he was missing something here. Yun was not this forward. Izuku expected this shit from Darkness, but never Yun. Okay, maybe that's not fair. Darkness isn't brave enough to say it in front of the party. Across the room, Darkness had the strangest feeling that she should be aroused, which was strange considering what her teammate just asked of their leader in front of everyone. You go girl, she thought, wishing she could be in her place. Oh, the humiliation would have been unbearable. Give me that note, Megumin shouted while swiping the letter from Yun's hands, immediately reading it at a fast pace. Izuku got curious and did the same. It was a warning saying that the village would soon be attacked by a demon army incursion that was spotted a few days earlier. Something to look into after this issue was solved. And in the second half, it spoke of a prophecy where Yun, the only survivor of the attack, falling in love with a legendary hero that lived in the starting town of Axel for some reason. Ah, so that's where that came from. Wait a minute. Is it just me or did the handwriting change completely? Izuku commented, which made Megumin check the bottom. Legend of the Crimson Magic Hero, Chapter 1, Author, Eru. Megumin crushed the letter the moment she read the author's name. A round of curses that could make a Bakugo blush later, and Megumin finally calmed down. Relatively speaking, of course. A demon general's going to be the least of that damn Eru's problems when I get my hands on her. Hearing the name Eru, Yun froze and started muttering curses herself, though they were barely worse than what some school children could come up with. Too pure. Whoever wrote that needs to apologize. The poor girl looked close to tears when she said that. Izuku thought. The fact that they were being attacked by a general was to be taken seriously, though. Now that Hans was dead and Walbach was recruited, that left only 3 generals remaining. Which meant, it's almost over, Izuku said aloud, which got everyone's attention. There are only 3 active generals left. If we're lucky, Aqua should be able to break the barrier already. And if we get rid of the one attacking the Crimson Demon Village, then it would be almost guaranteed. It just feels so surreal. Silence prevailed as the party chewed on the idea. It really was surreal. The war had been going on for generations. Over a century, in fact, and now, in a little under a year, there was a good chance that it would not only be over, but they would be the ones to end it. On one hand, it felt amazing. They'd be remembered for generations to come as heroes. On the other hand, it would mean that the adventure would be over. What would happen then? But I just got here. All Might whimpered, unintentionally removed the tension from the room. Let's not worry about all that. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Besides, I already have a pretty good idea of what my wish is going to be. Kazuma convinced them to drop the issue, though Aqua did grill him about the wish being some creepy neat nonsense, which got that argument rolling again. Now that Izuku thought about it, between Kazuma, himself, and now All Might, they had 3 wishes waiting for them. That brought the Green Paladin a new sense of security. 1 wish might not have been enough, but with 3, They could make sure everyone got what they wanted with that much power. Kazuma-kun is right. For now, we should rest and make plans to visit the village. For a number of reasons, Izuku said with a smile. The demon girls nodded furiously, both wanting vengeance for Eru's poor joke. Eris and Aqua obviously wanted to come for the sake of finishing their quest. Both were pretty excited at the thought of taking down the Demon King. Plus, Izuku could tell that they wanted to tease the two demon girls the entire time. Kazuma just wanted to meet Megumin's parents. Something about future blackmail material. Sigh, those two are constantly at each other's throats. It was like watching two siblings that love and hate each other in equal measure. On the other hand, Yun was the shy but kind sister that just wanted the two to get along. My party really is like one big dysfunctional family, huh? The thought put a smile on Izuku's face. Yeah, he wasn't giving these guys up anytime soon. He'd make those wishes count. Iris wanted to come because she was left behind last time. Plus, she always wanted to visit the legendary village. Walbach actually didn't want to come since she had bad memories of the village, barring Megumin of course, and All Might was on the fence. On one hand, he wanted to go with his successor on this new adventure. On the other hand, he could get started with his new job as a local hero right away. It was a tough call. Darkness also wanted to stay surprisingly enough. With the 7 of you going, you have more than enough firepower to take down a general. Besides, I need to stay behind and handle some of the paperwork for Toshinori-san's new position. Just remember to hurry back and maybe grab me a souvenir, she asked, secretly dying internally from the missed opportunity of possible pain and torment from said general. As unlikely as those things were given her level, Wiz of course needed to stay to look after her shop. Thankfully, Vanir was in charge of the actual purchasing and manufacturing of material while Wiz just handled the front desk. The shop was actually making a profit for once. With that, those who were going got up to prepare their things. They would all need a good night's rest for what was to come. In more ways than one, Izuku in particular just realized that he would be meeting the parents of his sort of girlfriend. We never did finalize what our little situation actually was, did we? Oh well, that was a problem for tomorrow's Izuku. A few hours of rest later, and Izuku woke up to the pleasant surprise of Eris sleeping at his side. And judging by the noise that he was hearing, the rest of the party was already awake, meaning that it was time for him to get up. Eris woke up at the disturbance and looked surprised for some reason. "Awa, I expected you to blush and sputter after seeing me. What happened to my nervous little hero?" Izuku chuckled at that and shot back. He got a harem and had this happen too many times for it to work on him anymore, he said, earning a chuckle from the goddess. After a few more minutes of poking fun at each other, the couple entered the kitchen and were met with the pleasant sight of an already cooked breakfast. "Good morning, young Midoriya. I hope you don't mind, but I took the liberty of making breakfast for everyone as a sign of thanks for all the help. I made a classic all-American breakfast for old time's sake, and it looks like they all like it. Breakfast from All Might." "Yes, please. Who would have thought sweet syrup and savory sausage could taste so good together?" Megumin voiced her opinion on the food happily, enjoying the eggs, sausage, pancakes, and fresh milk on the side. A little too sugary for Izuku's taste, but it was still delicious. "So, are we ready to head out? Yun should be able to teleport us into the village, so we shouldn't need to pack up or anything." Izuku got a thumbs up from Yun, who finished her breakfast quickly while heading towards the main hall. They'd need a good deal of space to teleport so many people at once, along with a mana infusion from Kazuma. Teleporting 1 or 2 people would be fine, but with 7 people going, it was going to take more than Yun could provide alone. With a flash of light, the party appeared right at the front gate of a relatively small town. It was a bit larger than Izuku thought it would be, but still had the image of a cozy little place. One of the first things the party saw was the giant griffin statue, which according to Megumin was a real griffin that was petrified and kept around as a tourist attraction. Something tells me making previous enemies into attractions is a common practice here. Izuku, though, with a sweat drop. Their first stop was the village chief's home. From what the letter said, the former leader might have passed away. If so, then Yun would take her father's place. Never mind, he was right there, waving at us while wearing the most chuny outfit I could think of. Wow, they really are all related. Apparently chuny tendencies were a racial trait. Now that Izuku thought about it, crimson demons and their traits just scream genetic manipulation. There's no way something like this could come about naturally. He blamed the reincarnates. They seem to love leaving their mark in this world. "So, you're the famous Izuku Midoriya. I gotta say, I thought you'd be taller." Izuku gave him a deadpan stare. "Not to say you aren't strong. The kingdom has already made your stats public. Says it gives the army a serious morale boost knowing that you're around." "Wait, really? Huh, that was honestly really cool." It reminded Izuku of how All Might used to be treated. "I assume you're here for the demon general and not just a social call?" he asked curiously. "A little bit of both, actually. I always wanted to visit the Crimson Demon Village. Considering that 2 of my party members and loved ones are from here, made sure of that. The demon general was just a nice incentive." The man let out a deep belly laugh at that. so the general was incentive A. Keep up that attitude and you'll be more than well liked here. Stick around for a few more minutes and you'll probably Hiropo began until a loud alarm rang across the village which said, Demon King Army alert! Demon King Army alert! Everyone who is free, please gather before the griffin statue at the village entrance. We have visuals of the enemy. They number about 1,000. 1,000 huh? It shouldn't be too bad then. The village was located in an easily defendable position and everyone had high-level magic skills. This place was essentially an impenetrable fortress, even before the party came along. Oh, how right he was. This wasn't even a battle. It was a massacre. At this point, Izuku was convinced that the Demon Lord's army was completely incompetent. The leader, a woman named Sylvia, seemed to be the only one who could withstand the constant barrage of magical attacks. The rest of the invading force was crushed. Do you mind if I go out and speak to that general? I'd rather try the diplomatic route before doing anything unnecessary. Izuku asked Hiropo out of respect. The chief seemed surprised but shrugged in the end. Sure. I don't see why. She's just a chimera. But since she's a demon general, I can see why you'd want to avoid fighting if possible. Just be careful. As you could see before, she has a very high magic resistance stat. Izuku nodded and head off at full speed. Sylvia was retreating with the few survivors from the attempted invasion, but at a speed that Izuku easily caught up with. Appearing in front of them, they stopped in their tracks and got into various fighting positions, at least until one of them recognized Izuku and immediately put down his weapon. Midoriya-sama, what are you doing here? Everyone, drop down and beg for forgiveness. Quickly, the half-dozen or so enemy soldiers did just that, bowing in a dojo position, praying for mercy. All except Sylvia, whose eyebrow twitches uncontrollably. I didn't think my reputation with the Demon King's army was this bad yet. Izuku gave a small cough to catch their attention and kept his eye on Sylvia just in case. I just came to talk. It's obvious that your attack was a failure. The soldiers shivered while Sylvia tesked in annoyance. Regardless, you're a General Sylvia-san. I can't just let you walk away without issue. I am willing to accept your surrender though. Izuku gave them his ultimatum. He didn't want to fight them outright. That would be a massacre. He'd much rather end this without violence. Really? Sylvia-sama, please take up his offer. I'll follow you to the death, but resisting would be futile against him. The man that seemed to be some kind of officer begged his general. Sylvia seemed to think it over before returning Izuku's stare. And what would happen to us if we surrender? My soldiers might be spared and taken in as prisoners of war. But a general like me, surely I'll be killed within the day. She asked, worry in her voice. Not necessarily. This isn't common knowledge, but of the 5 generals that have been defeated, only 2 have died. Izuku revealed, shocking her and the rest of her soldiers. Information on the generals was scarce, even to their own side. Beldia and Hans are dead. Both attacked cities filled with innocent people, something I couldn't let happen. Wiz-chan, Walbuk-chan, and Vanyer-kun are my allies and are under my protection. Things don't need to end in violence between us, though it depends on your past crimes. Izuku admitted. It all depended on their past, their present decision, and their future intentions. The soldiers would most likely be taken in and treated well enough. Prisoners of war were treated humanely and with respect, according to international laws. Though as a noble, Izuku would have a good deal of influence on their punishment since he was the one that captured them. As for Sylvia, the situation was similar. If she was like Wiz, Vanyer, or even Walbuk, who was more of a nuisance than a true threat, then she'd be given a pardon for her minor crimes. However, if she was a competent general, among the generals, I'm considered one of the weaker ones. However, my reputation seems mixed. I'll admit that my crimes against Belzerg are many. However, I have never engaged in wanton destruction. What does that do with my case? She admitted and asked. Izuku's detect lie was silent the whole time. And to answer her question, it really depended. If you surrender peacefully, then I'll try my best to make any punishment as lenient as possible. I have a good deal of influence with the kingdom, so I should be able to curb the death penalty at the very least. Izuku replied honestly. He wouldn't gain anything by lying. And it would just feel wrong if he did to someone who's already lost hope. May I have time to think about it? She asked with a forlorn expression, most likely thinking that Izuku wouldn't allow it. Yes, but only on 3 conditions. The paladin's answer surprised them, but he kept going. First and foremost, you will never attack this village again. Second, you will tell me the name and last known location of another general. And finally, the time limit to answer will be 2 days, no more. Are these acceptable? And before you even try, I'll know if you're lying. Izuku finished with a quick glare, daring them to try. Why yes, that offer is more than generous. We'll head back to our camp and tell the others, please, if some rogue agents choose to attack, know that it wasn't I who sent them. My men are loyal to me, almost fanatically so. And that can become a problem on occasion. She muttered, annoyance clear in her voice. Understandable. It's not like a few rogue soldiers would be much of a threat anyway, so Izuku nodded and allowed it. As for the second condition, We generals don't know much about each other as a rule, however, I can give you partial information on the remaining two. The first is a priest of Regina named Sarazdina. All I know of her is that she's our spymaster and the only human among the generals. The information was useful if a bit lacking. Izuku accepted it and waited for the second general. Then there is the king's daughter. Truthfully, I don't know her name. I doubt any of the generals do. She's rather secretive. Though there is a rumor that she's the strongest among us, even more so than Vanir. However, I've never seen her fight. She's also a skilled strategist, though tactics seem to be her strong suit. The Demon King had a daughter. Interesting. If she really was the strongest as well as a tactician, then it's a good thing we left her for last. There's no telling what the other generals could do if they were led by someone competent. That will do. You can leave now, but remember, you have 2 days to come to a decision. If you don't return, I will be forced to raid your fortress on the 3rd. I hope you make the right choice. Izuku gave them a soft smile before heading back to the village, leaving a nervous, yet relieved enemy behind. Back at the village. Upon reaching the village, Izuku noticed Hiropo giving him a questioning look. He stopped and explained what happened to him, and the chief let out another laugh at what his guest just did. Not bad, kid. Not bad at all. You'll definitely get along with everyone here. Speaking of which, your party headed out to visit little Megumin-chan's parents. Their house is in that direction if you were wondering. After thanking the chief for pointing him in the right way, Izuku headed towards Megumin's home, which was a bit smaller than he imagined. After knocking at the door and waiting for a few seconds, it opened, letting Izuku see a miniature Megumin staring back at him with stars in her eyes. Please don't tell me I have another fan. At least this one is just a little girl. I won't have to worry about being embarrassed too much. Dad, sis rich boyfriend is finally here. Never mind. Izuku forgot that he wasn't allowed to hope. Now he has to meet his girlfriend's parents. Oh god. The father, Hiwazaburo, was wearing a train engineer's hat and was glaring at him. And Yuyui, Megumin's mother, was staring at him with stars in her eyes as well. Did she just lick her lips? Watch closely. The mug I placed upside down on the low table will move around like so. Aqua performed her usual party tricks to the captivated audience of Konko and Iris, who was acting her age for once. Good for them. I was busy being stared at by Megumin's parents, who both had hungry looks in their eyes. Literally. Hiwazaburo gave a dry cough to catch my attention, which I freely gave, rubbing my head sheepishly in apology for not paying attention. Thanks for taking care of my daughter. I express my sincere gratitude for that, Hiwazaburo said as he lightly bowed to me. Besides him was a beautiful lady who resembles Megumin, with a head of black hair and slight wrinkles on the corner of her lips and eyes. It's obvious that you've been a good influence on her. The daughter I know would have shot off an explosion at the invading soldiers without hesitation. Instead, she just sat back calmly. I almost couldn't believe my eyes. Yuyui praised, looking genuinely shocked. I'll admit Megumin was pretty bad at the beginning, but she wasn't that bad. Right. Well then, what is your relationship with my daughter? Hiwazaburo asked, though his tone gave away that he already had suspicions. She's my teammate, one of my best friends, and my girlfriend. I answer honestly, which to my surprise brought tears to the grown man's eyes. It finally happened. My little girl has finally snagged a rich husband. He yelled to the heavens, slamming his fists on the table, cracks forming immediately. My dear, hurry, serve him our best tea. Hey, hubby, stop. Don't hit and damage the table. Our finance is really tight this month, Yuyui begged, trying to calm her husband down before he causes any more damage. Wait, their finances are low. Besides, you can't jump to conclusions like that. It might scare him away. Besides, we only have one type of tea. Are things really that bad? Oh wait, I forgot to bring them a gift for letting us stay here. All my apologies, I completely forgot to bring a gift to thank you for the hospitality. Allow me. I start by placing my hands on the wooden table and fixing any cracks that formed from earlier with transmutation. Afterwards, I grabbed an arrow from my pack, transmuting it into pure gold before holding it up to the two wide-eyed parents. Hiwazaburo grabbed the arrow from my hand and applied a bit of pressure. The soft, pure gold molded itself easily into his hands, causing his jaw to drop. This is pure gold. Our daughter's husband just turned wood into gold. He screamed to the heavens before tackling and lifting me over his head, swinging me around in a bone-breaking hug. Okay, bone-breaking might be a bit of an exaggeration. Sigh, why did I think anything related to Megumin was going to be easy? After another few minutes of being swung around like a flail, and several more of Hiwazaburo apologizing profusely, we came to the topic of dinner. Another mistake of mine. I should have known that it would be difficult to provide for so many people on such short notice. Again, I'm very sorry. I'm usually a lot more organized than this. Yunyun-chan, can you teleport us to the mansion? I'd like to pick up some food for everyone. The cry of mansion was ignored as Yunyun grabbed onto me and teleported us without complaint. Upon reaching the mansion, we noticed the peculiar sight of All Might, Senna, and Darkness doing paperwork while crying from the sheer amount. I gave them a quick salute and ran away to live another day. not wanting to risk being caught up in any of that. Any ideas for what to bring? I asked Yunyan, who was already collecting an assortment of various seafood along with some spicy herbs and other spices. Crimson demons have a strong preference for spicy food. Fish will do nicely with that. Too bad we don't have any lemon, she explained, catching my surprise. Even more evidence that the race wasn't natural. Then again, it could just be a chuny thing about withstanding the pain. Don't worry about the lemon. The chemical formula for citric acid is easy enough to replicate. I'll just turn some dust into crystals and sprinkle it on the food while cooking. Not quite understanding what I said, but going with it anyway, she finished packing the food while I went and grabbed some wine. Aqua would kill, revive, then kill me again if I didn't. With that done, I decided to grab the stove and a spare electric generator to bring with us. Megumin's house didn't seem big enough to cook all this food, and so we teleported outside the village gates, then hauled what we brought on my back. By the time we reached the outside of Megumin's house, we heard the booming voice of Hiwaizabaru screaming, "Food! So much food! Tonight we eat like gods." A boisterous approval of Aqua follows soon after. I did the only thing I could do, shake my head and get to cooking before they got hungrier. The meal I prepared was nothing special, at least compared to what we usually had at home, but with the limited tools available, it was the best I could do. The main dish was a simple grilled with a nice coating of butter and citric acid crystals on top. Mixed vegetables including cabbage, seaweed, and fresh cucumber were served on the side, and to top everything off, the fish were cooked separately, each covered in a progressively hotter coating of hot sauce that I created, along with a few servings of plain fish for those that didn't like spicy food. Though I must admit, creating hot sauce was surprisingly complicated. The basic formula for capsaicin was simple enough, but all of the other ingredients that gave the condiment its taste had to be accounted for as well. It made good practice for my transmute skill. Aqua provided us with fresh water along with a generous helping of salt water to make salt with. She got an extra bottle of wine and a head pat for that one. Though I must say I do feel kind of bad for adding the hotter varieties of hot sauce on some of the fish. This world wasn't exactly the most advanced when it comes to spicy food, so most people probably had no experience with 5 million plus Scoville hot sauce. Oh well, Yunyan asked for it. Food's ready. Eat up everyone, there's plenty to go around, I called out. The Crimson family and my party walked out of the small home to the sight of veritable feast waiting for them, at least compared to what the Crimson family was used to. Amazing. Wait, what's that smell? It's so strong. I explained that the smell came from the fish furthest to the right, and that they were covered in a powerful sauce from my homeland. I warned them that it was thousands of times hotter than the usual spices used on the fish in the middle. Of course, being the prideful people that they were, Hiwaizabaru immediately tried to eat the hottest one without any preparation whatsoever. The screams were heard throughout the village, and rumor has it that even the enemy fort nearby heard the horrific noise, further cementing the need to surrender. Even more so when Megumin took the screams as a challenge and ate the second hottest piece. The only difference it made was the pitch of the screams, which I noted caused an early migration of the local birds. I should probably help them with that. They already tried to use milk to quench the burning, but that wouldn't do much to that level of capsaicin. Here, take these. I handed them some capsaicin neutralizing tablets. They were fairly complicated to make, but not much more than the spices they were meant to negate. I really shouldn't have been surprised when they denied the medicine. No, we Crimson demons have our pride, damn it. We shall endure this torture and become stronger for it. Well, that was what the father said, but Megumin was looking at me with barely contained desperation in her eyes. I just shake my head and toss a pill to her while the others weren't looking. The earlier screams also happened to summon the rest of the Crimson demons, each looking hungrier than the last when they saw the small feast we had prepared. And if the looks they were giving Hiwaizabaru are anything to go by, they were ready to test their own tolerance for the sake of pride. There were no survivors. Looks like I was right. None of the villagers could truly handle the stronger sauces. Though to be fair, they were literally the spiciest things in the world. This one are my own. Even I could barely handle the ghost pepper sauce, mostly due to Kaken's influence. You can't be friends with the guy without gaining at least a decent tolerance to spicy food. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I kinda miss him. Can I have one? Konko's innocent voice asked, tearing me away from my thoughts. She was staring at some of the spicier foods. A part of me wanted to say no and spare her the pain, but the other, much stronger part was telling me that saying no would cause her to cry, which was 1,000 times worse. In the end, I relented. Worst comes to worst, I'll hand her some of the medicine. None of it was necessary, though, as the pint-sized girl downed the whole thing in one bite without so much as a whimper. So good. Thank you, Izuku Nai-sama. Silence reigned for a bit before the girl's fallen father muttered out, "That's my girl." From that moment on, Konko gained a decent amount of respect from the rest of the village. Little did they know this little girl was going to rule them all in time. It was just a matter of time. After everyone recovered from the inferno that they ingested, I was introduced to the rest of the villagers, including a certain writer who owed us an apology. She was a slippery one, but with my help Megumin, Yunyun and I managed to corner her. Usually a prideful crimson demon wouldn't apologize, but this time we had leverage. She was the only one who wasn't offered the anti-capsaicin pills. You can end the burning feeling at any time, Eru-san. Just apologize to these two for that story you wrote, I told her in a calm voice as she was panting from the heat. She looked willing but was confused about something. I am sorry, but why is Megumin-sen mad? I can understand Yunyun-chan being angry, but why her? After she apologized, I handed her the tablet and let Megumin explain her anger. I had a pretty good idea as to why. There are two reasons actually. First, I resent the fact that only Yunyun survived the destruction of the village even though I left months ago. Okay, Eru flinched from that one, looking genuinely sorry for forgetting her. But above all that, Yunyun-chan isn't the only one who's dating a hero, she announced before slamming her lips on my own, shocking both Eru and Yunyun, the latter of which looked equally happy and jealous for her first friend, rival. Eventually the jealousy won over and she came in closer, hugging my other side. Oh boy, I have mixed feelings about this. These kinds of situations could flip-flop easily. Wait, you're telling me that what I wrote was true? Her face went from shock to complete elation when she realized that her Chunobu tendencies were spot on for once. Before the situation could devolve any further though, 3 more Crimson Demon girls showed up. Wait. Yunyun-chan and little Megumin-chan have a boyfriend before me. The girl with twin tails, Funifura if I remembered correctly, exclaimed while pointing her finger at all of us. Her friend, Todonko I think it was, stood there equally shocked but was staring at Eru instead, probably shocked that one of her friend's stories actually did come true, if only partially. Finally there was Naramaki, a kind but nervous girl that sold us some more liquor for the impromptu party that our dinner turned into. She just stared at me with barely contained curiosity while trying to stay at the back, not wanting too much attention. Apparently Funifura has had enough and demanded to duel her former classmates for the right to be my girlfriend. Don't I get a say in this? Apparently not, since Megumin immediately accepted on the condition that I would be the one to fight them on the girl's behalf. Sigh, all I wanted to do today was to help out the town, meet Megumin and Yunyun's family, and have a nice dinner. I guess I did get what I wanted, but the world needed to balance out my good fortune with some chaos. Eris was right, never a dull moment for the lucky. There are some things in life that are just not fair. Light of Saber, a rather large, quick, but also telegraphed attack headed towards me. It was dodged with shocking ease. I had no time to appreciate the light show though, since Freezebind was heading my way. Entering a knife fight with a gun for example, or crushing a small business with the might of a huge corporation. With my already high constitution stat along with my blessing of constitution, I barely felt a chill. The status debuffs associated with the spell were either ignored or cleansed instantly using cleanse magic. Seeing this, my opponents decided to go all out instead of whittling me down with debuffs. Inferno, Tornado, Earthquake. A huge mass of flame was spawned around me, which was then accelerated and fueled by the winds of the tornado spell. Dealing with a fire tornado and an earthquake at once was a bit much, especially so close to the village, so I decided to end our match right there. Detroit Smash. I slammed the ground at full force, halting the earthquake while also displacing the tornado that burned around me. When I noticed that no more spells were heading my way, I turned towards the girls that challenged me were pooling their mana together for a final large spell, hoping to overpower me. But in this world, the epitome of unfairness is fighting Izuku Midoriya as a mage. I simply pointed my hand towards them and activated Magic Canceller. Upon noticing that their spell failed, their shoulders dropped along with their legs, too tired to remain standing. I guess that's it then. Are you 4 satisfied now? I asked the mages on the ground. The only response I got were a few coughs and calls of hacks. What did you think was going to happen? I have like 50 levels over you, and a build designed to deal with multiple opponents quickly. This was only ever going to end one way. I guess the Chuny attitude made them forget that. Besides, I never agreed to the terms of the fight. I'm going to have words with Megumin-chan when this is over. Anyway, I should get going. I have things to speak about with Highway Zabaru-san and Hiropo-san. Before walking away, I decided to help them out a bit. Wait, you're just going to leave? Don't we owe you anything for winning? Funifura asked from her place on the ground, nervous over owing a debt to a noble, even a kind and down-to-earth one like myself. Maybe. I'll ask you both for a favor tomorrow. Finish that and I'll call it even. They agreed easily enough. It was too easy. Really, they shouldn't agree to something like that without setting ground rules. Though with the look Eru gave me, I think she was expecting something like that all along. She's going to be disappointed. Taking out a few mana potions from my adventurer's bag, I handed it to them. Here, take these. They should get you back on your feet. It won't restore your stamina though, so be careful. And with that, I walked towards Hiropo's home, where we along with Megumin's parents were going to discuss how things will go from here. I always knew that Megumin's parents were impoverished. I just never thought it was this bad. I needed answers. No matter what happens, I refuse to let them stay like that. Especially Komko, a kind child like that doesn't deserve to live in poverty. The mentioned people were waiting for him at the dinner table, idly chatting with each other before they noticed my arrival. Izuku-kun, you asked to speak with us. Is there anything you need? Hiropo asked, taking the situation seriously as the village leader. Yeah, actually there are multiple things I want to talk about. First of all, I'd like to say that as one of the active governors of Axel, I want to sponsor the Crimson Demon Village. Hiropo's eyes sparkled at that. From what I've been able to gather, no noble had the courage to do it, mostly due to the village's infamy with self-destructive behavior. Essentially, I'd like to fund several projects within the village. An expansion of the school's curriculum, improvements to alchemical reagent cultivation, and if I get approval from back home, we might be able to get the village its own branch of the Adventurers Guild. That way anyone who wants to be an adventurer wouldn't need to leave the village to do so. Hiropo was vibrating in his seat as I listed what I wanted to do. And you would fund all of this yourself, Izuku-kun. And what new curriculum would we add? This all sounds great, but I need details, lad. Of course, nobody would just agree to something so vague. But first I'd like to take care of the easier issue. Before that, there are a few questions I'd like to ask, along with a favor. I began, keeping my voice calm. From what I've heard, Hayao Zabiru-san is a magic item craftsman. Though for whatever reason his items always have defects to them that make them difficult or impossible to use effectively. The more I spoke, the whiter Hayao Zabiru became, while Yui grew smug. I guess she was aware of this for a while. I sweat drop at the obvious body language. Needless to say, I don't like the fact that one of my party's family is in a constant state of poverty. As such, I'd like to help you with your business. Seeing Hayao Zabiru's reluctance, I added a second option. Alternatively, I could offer your family a home at our mansion. It would allow you to focus more on your craft without worrying about your financial security. I feel bad letting young Konko-chan go hungry like she was when we met. I'd be more than happy to provide support for Megumin's family, so don't think that you'd be a burden. With that, Yui was in on the idea. Hayao Zabiru was still unsure, so I tried to compromise with him. Another option is that you can move your business to Axel and sell to the adventurers directly. One of my friends owns a magic shop in the city that's already sponsored by us. If you make a joint business venture with her, then we could provide funding along with a new, larger base of operations. How does that sound? The change came rather quickly. The man's combined care for his daughter and want for profit overruled his demon pride. I'm in. Wait, no. Is this business partner strong? My pride as a crimson demon will not allow me to work with someone who can't handle themselves. From the exasperated face Yui was making, this was usually a deal breaker. Normal shopkeepers couldn't stand up to an archwizard after all. Though this was me we're talking about. I don't have any normal friends. Depressing thought aside. How does a legendary archwizard Lick, master ice magic caster, and former demon general sound? By their dropped jaws and Hayao Zabiru's pale face, I think I just sealed the deal. I have a habit of meeting and befriending unreasonably powerful people, I explained. Though with the company I keep, I don't think it was necessary. Alright, now that we've settled that, what kind of revisions were you thinking of for the school's curriculum? A smirk came to my face at that question. The kids were going to love this. Oh, who am I kidding? I'm in the Crimson Demon Village. Everyone is going to love this. Time skip, next day. Hello everyone, my name is Izuku Midoriya, and today we'll be doing a little test run of what your future curriculum may look like. I introduced myself to a class full of Crimson Demon children, though their ages varied from Konko's to some who were a few years older than Megumin. Speaking of which, you heard the man. Get up and head to the training fields outside. We'll be giving you brats a demonstration of what you could achieve if you follow our lead. The former student before I lightly smacked her over the head before she could anger them further. Be nice, Megumin-chan. Cough. As my party member said, we will be giving a demonstration of what to expect in the coming months, along with a quick lesson to see how well you respond to it. But before any of that, I have a question for all of you. I paused for dramatic effect. The class calmed down, giving me their full attention. How many of you would like to be heroes? That question seemed to rile everyone up with excitement, my reputation making it more than a mere question. Taking that as my answer, I gave them a small smile and walked off towards the training area. The medium-sized troop of demons following me close behind. Waiting for us at the field were the girls from yesterday, and my own party, both of which agreed to help with my demonstration. They weren't very happy about it though. Something about getting their ass kicked in front of their former classmates, to quote the girls. Oh well, they owed me a favor after that fight yesterday. Before we begin, let me make myself clear. If any of you have questions while we go on, feel free to ask them. There are no stupid questions. You're all here to learn, and I doubt you can do that if you can't ask questions. Nods were given. They were too excited to answer properly, waiting for me to begin the lesson. With a sigh, I started. Let's begin with a quick question. Who here knows what determines the power of a spell? My question seemed to confuse them, but one of the older students answered magical power. Though her tone was nervous, expecting it to be a trick question, I shake my head. It was a popular answer, but not entirely true. Not quite. You see, magical power, or mana as it's commonly known, is simply a fuel, and similar to fire, fuel is just one part of the whole. I walk towards a nearby stone and pick it up. The main factor behind spells' power is knowledge, specifically knowledge of the processes that the user's magic is trying to replicate. As a general rule, any effect created via magic can be replicated with enough time, resources, and knowledge with mundane methods. Seeing that some of the younger students were lost, I gave a demonstration. As an example, a fireball spell is rather basic in the way it works. You use mana to heat up the air and cause a combustion. You can achieve roughly the same effect using a piece of paper, some alcohol, and some flint. As I said that, I turned a small patch of grass into paper, transmuted small pieces of it into alcohol, and finally used a small bit of one for all to light it on fire. The students were mesmerized by the silent casting and seemed to understand what I meant a bit better. If you're wondering what I just did, it's a special spell called Transmute. It allows me to transform one substance into another, so long as I have an understanding of both substances and the difference between them. I can also transform the shapes of these substances, but limited to the original amount of said substance. Their collective eyes flashed red at how I described it. Their mutually high INT stats thinking over the implications of such a spell. And no, I will not be teaching anyone this spell, at least not anytime soon. It is extremely dangerous to anyone who doesn't know exactly what they're doing. If used to its true potential, its destructive power could make the explosion spell seem like a child's firecracker. The severity in my voice prevented anyone from questioning it. Explosion was already the strongest spell known to most humans. If the country's strongest hero said that he had something much stronger, then they would believe it. If anything, my reputation with the students just skyrocketed from my claims. Anyway, back to the lesson. To start with, I should explain what I meant by having knowledge of substances and their components. After that, we'll let you spar with either the graduates or members of my own party to see if any progress comes of it. Strap in, students. Today you'll all be learning the basics behind atomic theory. I yelled, with a bit too much zeal in my voice. A collective shiver ran through the class of Crimson Demons. They had no idea what they just walked into. And if the phantom pains they felt on their wrists were anything to go by, it was going to involve a level of paperwork that would make professional politicians weep. About an hour after starting our classes on atomic theory and later chemical science, I thought it would be prudent to lay down some ground rules for self-study. They went as such. First rule of Izuku's training: don't talk about Izuku's training. Second rule of Izuku's training: never split the atom. Third rule of Izuku's training: no transfiguration of precious metals. Fourth rule of Izuku's training: when in doubt, teleport to Axel and ask either Izuku or Eris whether something is a good idea. Fifth rule of Izuku's training: don't mess with gravity. Sixth rule of Izuku's training: when working with gaseous substances, always wear gas masks. Seventh rule of Izuku's training: don't mess with time punishable by magical neutering. Eighth rule of Izuku's training: do not, under any circumstances, mess with subatomic particles. Ninth rule of Izuku's training: necromancy is generally frowned upon unless used for healing arts or for interrogation. 10th rule of Izuku's training: if by some miracle you manage to create an artificially intelligent being, they shall be treated as truly human by law. Some of these might have seemed a bit harsh, but the fact that they thought that proved how little they knew of the true dangers behind advanced magic. Nuclear explosions aren't even in the top 20 as far as dangerous magical accidents go. As far as the negotiations with Hiropo went, he basically agreed with most of our suggestions. The class taught by myself and my party had already shown a remarkable improvement in their mana efficiency, if nothing else. Knowing the process behind how their magic works cut the costs by providing knowledge in place of imagination. Equivalent exchange was still in effect though, so there were limits to how efficient certain spells could be. As for my role in it, I would be tasked with visiting the village twice a week to slowly teach the staff the very same curriculum that their students would learn later. Along with that, I would provide some optional lessons for those that wanted them. Additionally, a small stipend will be given to the village from my own finances in order to smooth out the transition, as well as provide the necessary funds for certain reforms that I suggested in the agricultural and alchemical fields. All it cost me was about 20 million eris a year, or about 1% of the money we made from Kazuma's merchandise. Oh, the wonders of selling modern appliances to a world stuck in the Middle Ages. Oh, and I was given minor legislative authority over the village, mostly because of the dangers inherent in introducing powerful magic to a notoriously reckless and powerful group. Iris thought it was for the best, and Hiropo begrudgingly agreed so long as any laws I made were related to safety and nothing more. We also planned to involve the Adventurers Guild, but I was given that responsibility for when I got back to Axel. After all the bureaucratic nonsense was finished, I simply relaxed and waited for Sylvia's response. I didn't have to wait long. She came alone, not wanting to cause some kind of misunderstanding. Thankfully, we also received an update from the king himself on what I could gather. Iris spoke to her father and he greenlit the idea of me taking the general and any other enemy of the state under my wing so long as I kept them in line. She was loyal enough, not really hating the idea of working for me so long as her soldiers were spared. I kept them around as Sylvia's personal force, which kept her. I wish she would stop bowing to me whenever I address her. Sylvia-san, please. I'm your boss, not a king. You don't have to act like that around me. She gave me strange looks at that. What? Why are you looking at me like that? I'm too used to having rumors spread about me, so I wanted to nip this in the bud while I still could. Well, it's just that you show all the signs. You came out of nowhere and immediately asserted yourself as one of the strongest adventurers in the world, along with having 2 women of considerable power and influence on your side. Oh gods, please no. Then you single-handedly defeated the previous strongest adventurer, recruited people that were previously considered mediocre, unconventional, or just plain useless, and turned them into elite-level adventurers practically overnight. Please stop. People are starting to stare. After that, you planned out and perfectly executed a plan to assassinate a demon general, earning the trust, admiration, and later complete loyalty of the entire city. Not to mention how you became a noble within weeks of arriving in the country. I knew that stupid lie was gonna come back to bite me. And to top it all off, you even crushed a natural disaster class existence, saving the city you lived in and further cementing your role as a true leader. I blame Asobi. That asshole had it out for me ever since he kidnapped me last month. You then somehow earned the trust of the king of Belzerg himself along with his daughter's hand in marriage. What? And soon after that it was revealed to us that 2 of your companions were goddesses of all things. Demon army spies are good. That information isn't exactly easy to come by. Not to mention the 3rd goddess you recruited after that debacle in Alkenresha where you killed yet another demon general, which just so happened to coincide with the disappearance of yet another general. Her tone became playful for that one. I guess it was too much of a coincidence that only Hans's death was reported while Walbach's hold over the barrier also disappeared. And now you've effectively taken over the legendary Crimson Demon Village, its economy, and even parts of its education in a way that would make them even more powerful than before. I dare say that you're one of, if not the most dangerous people in this world. I've heard enough. No, stop. That's enough. I know it looks bad, but this is all one big misunderstanding, I swear. And I just realized how suspicious that sounded. There was no getting out of this, was there? Of course, Izuku-sama, my apologies, I spoke out of turn. Sigh, at least the Crimson Demons were used to this kind of plot twist BS and barely gave us a second look. With any luck, we can bury this rumor and pass it off as another Crimson Demon tall tale. But anyway, now that we've established that, I should probably explain your new duties. My party, being what it is, usually acts independently as adventurers, though we are partially connected with the Belzerg military due to my status as a noble. Sylvia nodded, understanding so far, and probably twisting it into yet another reason that I'm some kind of future demon lord. Due to this, you are to be given the military rank of lieutenant colonel, with your remaining soldiers as your subordinates. I will be your commanding officer and direct superior. Essentially, my orders are law, and I'm the only one that can do so, barring the royal family. I made sure that the nobility couldn't abuse their powers for this. The greedier or more ambitious ones might try to go for a power grab. I'll leave the division of ranks for your men up to you. Just make sure to keep them on a tight leash. My protection doesn't extend to them, unless they were acting on your direct orders, I explained, making sure to hammer in the fact that while I had a good deal of influence, it could only go so far. It wasn't an excuse for her men to do whatever they like. Beyond that, there's not much else. The fort you've made will act as a barracks, while the Crimson Demon Village, along with the nearby city of Alkenresha, will provide basic food, clothing, and other necessities, all funded by myself. Aqua even managed to get us a nice discount with the city's merchants. Now, if you don't mind, I need to speak to Iris-chan about a certain marriage proposal that apparently exists. I gained a dangerous glint in my eye. King or not, Iris' father had a lot of explaining to do. 5 minutes later with Iris. Yeah, I guessed as much, though I would have preferred if Daddy didn't do this without our consent. Not that I oppose his decision. Do you, Izuku-kun? Iris asked with a hint of concern in her voice. Honestly, I wasn't against the idea either. Iris was a great person, but I agreed with her on the lack of choice on the matter. Of course not. It's not like this is anything new, honestly. You've been a wonderful friend so far, and I'm sure we'll become even closer as the years go on, but it's not just my decision to make. I haven't been single for months. The other girls should have a say in it, not that I think they would deny you. The other girls loved Iris. Darkness quickly started treating her like another little sister, even though she was from a higher social class. Being a member of our party puts everyone on equal ground. Aqua and Kazuma were similar, bringing Iris along for their general mischief. Wiz hasn't known Iris long enough to form an opinion, but they get along well enough. The same goes for Walbach. Union positively adores Iris, finding a friend and kind sister in her, while Megumin had developed quite the rivalry with her. This was mostly due because Iris had thrown herself into her training, quickly rising 20 levels in such a short period of time in order to catch up with the archwizard who was her own age. Megumin's pride, while tempered by practicality, would not allow this to happen without a fight and upped her own training since then. Eris was in the same boat as Darkness, but without the class struggle. She just treated Iris as a younger sister, third voice of reason in the party, which was sorely needed. I might add, Eris and I could only do so much before our party's antics got out of hand, though they've gotten better over the years. Of course, this wasn't going to happen for a long while. Iris, along with Megumin and Yunyun, were too young to marry, and the girls had agreed to wait so that everyone had a fair and equal chance to be with me. Hence why we would wait until the youngest members come of age before continuing with the relationship. The age difference wasn't much of a problem, though. The girls were only 2 years younger or older than me at worst. Not much of a difference, even back in my old world. All things considered, things were going well for us. With our business finished, our party was ready to head back to Axel. I needed to speak with Luna and Darkness over the deals made with the Crimson Demon Village. Besides, I wanted to hang out with All Might for a bit. It was such a shame that we had to leave so soon after he arrived. Maybe we could do something for the upcoming Eris Festival. This year's festival was going to be particularly extravagant at least in Axel. After all, it's not every year where the goddess that you're celebrating actually lives in your city, along with 2 other goddesses and several other of the country's legendary heroes. As the local co-governor, I, and by extension my party, were responsible for funding the festival along with organizing it with the help of the Adventurers Guild and the locals. Maybe a sparring match between myself and All Might. And I'm sure Aqua would love to play her usual party tricks for such a large audience. Kazuma and Eris could provide their own form of entertainment with their thief skills, maybe sleight-of-hand magic tricks. The possibilities were vast when it came to our party's entertainment skills. What's something that the people of this world have likely never seen? Maybe something from Earth. Something flashy, exciting, and unique. Boom! Megumin's daily explosion magic practice shot rose up, causing the sky to temporarily go orange. Then it hit me. A stray rock launched from the explosion crashed into the side of my skull, giving me a splitting headache for the next few minutes. After getting some painkillers from Aqua, an idea hit me. Megumin is gonna love our latest invention. Various chemicals were going through my head as my idea for the festival flourished. It was going to be one to remember. Our party, with the addition of Megumin's family and Hiropo, decided that we were ready to head to Axel. Temporarily in Hiropo's case, he just needed to finalize some of the deals we spoke about at the village. Our welcoming party was unexpected but not unappreciated. Apparently the news of me subjugating another demon general spread quickly. Needless to say, the chief and Megumin's family loved it, especially Komko, who was given food on the house, instantly winning her over and earning her the title of Axel's #1 stomach out, eating multiple fully grown adults with ease. I should be worried about that. I really should. But it's honestly one of the lesser weird things going on in my life, so I'll let it slide. Not like they were hurting for money. Feeding the equivalent of a small army wouldn't be so bad. For now, Megumin's parents and myself were heading to Wiz's shop, both to start the business partnership and for me to pick up some materials for the festival. When we reached the shop, IzuxHarem tensed up. I guess he noticed Wiz's magical energy. Pretty impressive considering how much she keeps it contained. Either that or Vanner was pranking me. We entered the shop just in time for it to explode in my face. Luckily, I was in front when it happened so the others didn't get hurt, and all I got was some burnt clothing. As expected, Wiz was face down on the floor, covered in ash and unconscious. What did she do this time, Vanner-san? As he explained his part, the Crimson Demons just stared in confusion, not expecting 2 people, much less that one of them would be a true devil of all things. The explosion to the face was taken in stride, though. That was at least a fairly common thing in the world of magic, at least when it came to IzuxHarem. And so you see, that blasted collar was nothing but trouble. In fact, it nearly killed a customer if it weren't for my timely interruption. I had to discipline the debt magnet for such a mistake. Damn it, Wiz. I can't even argue against this. It really was such a stupid item to keep around in the open. Good work, Vanner-san. If you don't mind, I'll take Wiz-chan to get healed. Where are my manners? These 2 are our guests and future business partners. I introduced the 2 to the demon, whose face lit up at the thought of future profit. IzuxHarem-san is a magic item craftsman who was coming under hard times, so I decided to lend a hand. I'll leave you 2 alone to talk business. Yui-san, would you like to stay? Or would you prefer to join me and get yourselves settled at the mansion? At the mention of a mansion, she abandoned her husband to the demon lord in an instant. The last thing they heard before the door closed behind them was Vanier's maniacal laughter. Will he be okay? Yui asked soon after we left, a small shred of guilt in her voice. It was microscopic though. She may or may not have held a small grudge against her husband's debt-creating business. Maybe. Yes, don't worry about it. For a Duke of Hell, Vanir-san is quite nice. No, that's a lie. It's more accurate to say that he seeks profit and suffering above all else. Cooperation and business just happens to be the quickest and most sustainable way for him to gain both. He wasn't a good person, the opposite was true in fact. But he was a smart person, which made him reasonable. It took us a few minutes to reach the mansion, time that Yui used to enjoy the scenery of her new home. Since we lived a forested area, it was rather nice. As we got close to the mansion, I saw a familiar face in the distance, or more accurately, a familiar hairstyle. All Might Sensei. I called out to him. He and the shorter woman next to him looked up when they heard me. Wait, wasn't she that waitress that I hired to fill in for Luna? The last time I saw her, I didn't catch her name. Hell, I was barely paying attention to her appearance from how ready I was to go on vacation. Giving her a once-over, I noticed that she was attractive in a girl-next-door kind of way. Though with the company I keep, my standards might have been unfairly high. She had shorty-ish brown hair that framed her face nicely and sharp, slightly dark green eyes, and with the way their hands were moving, I had a decent idea what was going on. I leave for 2 days and you get yourself a girlfriend. You work fast, Sensei. I call him out on it. He tried to play it cool, but I knew he was freaking out internally. The man was an amazing hero, but he probably hasn't had a romantic relationship in decades. Oh, Midoriya-sama, welcome back. I was just showing Yagi-kun around the city, she explained clumsily. I just had a grin on my face. Sure, showing him around after 2 days of being here, and in the direction of our mansion. I'll leave them alone for now, my request can wait. Of course, well, I'll leave you two to it. I still have to help Yui-san get settled at the mansion. Plus I have to heal Wiz-chan here after her latest run-in with Banner-san's disciplining. We'll be having 3 new residents, and possibly a guest for the night. I explained and walked off, leaving the 2 lovebirds alone. Izuku-san, was that All Might? I know you said he was thin, but I didn't expect that. Is he okay? Yui asked, worried over her future son-in-law's mentor. More or less. He took a big injury to his stomach and lungs about 8 years ago. The damage was healed recently. His stomach and left lung grew back, but the effects of malnutrition stuck. Believe it or not, he was even thinner just 2 days ago. He's making good progress. Before he looked like a skeleton. Now he looks like a zombie. Baby steps. Malnutrition usually takes months to fix. It was a small miracle that he gained that much weight so soon. Well, that was a problem that would fix itself. For now, we headed towards the mansion, specifically some of the empty rooms. Before that, I left Wiz down in one of our couches and fed her a healing potion from our stock. We rarely used them since Aqua was a fantastic healer, but it pays to be prepared. Here it is. You can choose whichever room you like. This entire side of the mansion has been empty since we bought it, so it's no problem. The kitchen is downstairs. Feel free to cook whatever you want whenever. I thought about it for a bit and decided it would be okay. If you want to use our cooking appliances, the instruction manuals are in the rightmost cupboard. Be careful with the equipment, it can be dangerous if used incorrectly. I make sure to emphasize, the appliances were meant to be as intuitive as possible, but it never hurt to be careful. I didn't want to buy a new mansion anytime soon. The baths are across the corridor, 3rd room on the left. Just remember to knock before you go in. The party is still paranoid after the succubus incident, I said darkly. Thankfully Yui didn't comment on that as I continued with the tour. 1 hour, and a surprisingly long tour later. And there you have it. So long as you remember those simple rules, you should do just fine. I finished the tour before looking back on the clearly traumatized woman. Are you okay, Yui-san? I asked in concern. She replied with a small, nearly inaudible voice. As so much leather. Why? Why was there so much leather? She was still worried about Darkness hobby room, of which each member of the party got one. Darkness just had one of the more unique rooms. Kazuma just asked for a game room, which I gladly provided. It was basically a mini arcade which the whole party used. Aqua asked for a brewery. Megumin wanted a library. For the sake of fairness, Iris, Walbach, All Might, etc. would receive a room of their own too. We were going to have to renovate the mansion eventually. It was more than enough when we were a party of 6, but now, yeah, we could use a second building. Luckily, we had plenty of free space. With my thoughts focused on the future expansion of our home base, I didn't notice a high-pitched sound heading towards me until it was too late. A surprisingly strong push came from behind me, knocking me down face first on the floor. Looking over my shoulders, I saw the little culprit still hugging me just a bit too tightly. It's been a while since someone's tried to glomp me. This little girl is surprisingly strong. The stuffed cheeks gave me a pretty good idea as to why she was hugging me. Konko-chan, I'm glad that you enjoyed your time at the guild, but can you please let me go? The little demon with a vice grip did as I asked and let me stand up. At least none of the others were around to see that. Oh, what do we have here? The mighty Izuku-kun taken down by this little rascal. How the mighty have fallen. Eris teased with a shit-eating grin. Internal groaning. Let it be known that while Izuku wasn't a very prideful individual, being knocked down by a little girl nearly half his size would hurt anyone's self-esteem. Izuku now, quick, do something cool to counteract it. Something cool? Like what? I'm still a nerd, damn it. I can't just be cool on command. Wait, I got it. Speaking of fall, I should really get started on the plan to get you back to heaven, Eris-chan. Meet me tonight and I should be able to do it before morning. It took several seconds before the implications kicked in. By then everyone excluding Konko who didn't understand were blushing while Eris was on the floor with a nosebleed. Did I really just say that? I thought in a panic. Sure, it was super effective as far as payback went, but I don't like the way Darkness was looking at me. Was she drooling? Nope, not dealing with this. Sayonara. Immediate regret. 1 hour later, after hiding in the proverbial hole for about an hour, I thought it was safe to come back out. From what I could tell, Eris was still unconscious from before. Darkness was nowhere to be found. Kazuma kept me informed like the bro he was, though I could have gone without the constant salutes. Thankfully, the other girls weren't kept in the loop. I couldn't even imagine how Megumin and Yunyan would react to me dirty-talking Eris. Actually, I can imagine what they would do. And it ends with a very quick, very painful explosion to the face, possibly multiple. Aqua would just laugh at me, maybe even congratulate me for getting one over on her junior. Walbach would take what I said seriously and probably collapse too. All might, must never know. If worse comes to worse, I have more than enough blackmail to retaliate, but I don't want it to come to that. That being said, I didn't waste all my time while I was hiding. I used the tablet gift to search up chemical mixtures for fireworks. This world has its own version, but it just wasn't the same. Detonation magic could, at best, produce 3 colors: red, orange, and yellow. And even then they don't have the same patterns that Earth fireworks did. Thankfully, they were surprisingly simple. I already knew how to make gunpowder. I used nitrate as the oxidizer and some simple chlorate as the chlorine donor. The most complex chemical to copy was dextrin, the binding agent. All in all, I managed to make 48 explosives, 8 of each color. With that done, I should visit the guild again. Though this time I'll be a paying customer. It should be an easy job to just set these up and detonate them right before the festival. I'll even pay them in advance. Guild hall minutes later. Hey Luna-chan, how do I make a request for a job? I made something special for the upcoming Eris festival, and I'll need to hold it somewhere along with some adventurers for when it needs to be set up. It's nothing complicated either, so I'm sure anyone could do it. Oh, normally you'd have to write a formal request and turn it into the guild, but since I can handle it myself. From what you're describing, you want a set space to hold equipment and a set of hands to set it up at a specific time. If it will be here until the festival begins, then that will cost you 100,000 Eris, plus 50,000 for the adventurer's labor if it's a simple job. Is there anything else I should know? I mentioned that the materials were flammable and rather fragile, which cost me an extra 100,000 for the extra risk, which I was fine with. With this, I was an official patron of the guild. Took me long enough, I suppose, I thought to myself jokingly. Now that I think about it, do we even pay taxes? Something to deal with later. I feel bad sitting on all this money and not paying our fair share. It sets a bad example. Thank you for your patronage. See you soon, Izuku-kun, she said playfully. I still had 3 more things to do before I could head back to the mansion for some rest. First, I should check up on Highway Zabaru and Vanir. Hey, you two, how are the negotiations going? 2 unconscious men were lying down on the floor. The smell of alcohol made the culprit obvious. I guess that's a good sign. Deciding that I was better off not knowing, I closed the door on my way out and never looked back. Well, that was a bust. Guess I should check on Sina next. She must be tired after all that paperwork from last time. Heading towards the local Imperial building, I quickly saw the hardworking girl barking orders at her subordinates. Classic Sina. Good afternoon, Sina-san. I came to see how you were holding up. Sorry about dumping all that paperwork on you a couple days ago, but I had business elsewhere. Well, that was half true. Really, I was just having a small vacation at the Crimson Demon Village. Though nobody could tell when my vacations ended up subjugating an average of 1.5 demon generals each. I should go on vacation more often. Senna looked angry at first, then resigned, then accepting of what I said. Her subordinates looked at me, then at each other, and then nodded in unison, walking away from their distracted boss before they were yelled at again. Oh, of course, I understand, Izuku-kun. You have your duties as a noble, and your obligations as a member of such a close-knit party. Besides, I should be thankful. You brought such a powerful new ally into our country and even placed him in a position to defend the people within the day. Although I would like to ask if anything productive came of your trip. I smiled at her. I have a feeling she'd be even happier after hearing my story. Sigh. You really are unbelievable, Izuku-kun. another demon general, a partnership with the legendary Crimson Village, and a new battalion of soldiers that are of above-average power. It's almost as if every mission you take is destined for an overwhelming success. She looked both exasperated and ecstatic over the news, though I'd say it was more like dumb luck and the ridiculous reputation I've grown since coming here. Hope you have a great day, Sena-san. Oh, and I have something interesting prepared for the upcoming Eris Festival, so make sure you make it. I guarantee that it'll be a show to remember, I exclaimed, smiling the whole time as I sped my way towards the mansion, or more specifically the outer region where I'm sure All Might was. It took me a few minutes, but I finally found him resting at the foot of a tree, a satisfied smile on his face as he truly relaxed for the first time in years. Well, someone had a nice day. I hope it goes well, All Might Sensei, but I do have a favor to ask. I spoke up, catching his attention. I sure did. And name it, young Midoriya. I already owe you a great deal. Shaking my head at that, I didn't try to tell him otherwise. That argument would last the rest of the day with how stubborn we both could be. I'd like to spar with you sometime later. During the Eris Festival, actually. It would be a public match to entertain the city along with the other events. How does that sound? He looked thoughtful for a moment before staring back at me with a smirk. It sounds interesting. Reminds me of the old days where hero exhibition matches were more common. Plus, it would be nice to fight for an audience again. Though I have to ask, just how strong have you become, young Midoriya? He asked curiously, knowing just how quickly people could become strong in this world. I returned the smirk with one of my own. Enough to give you a good fight, I'm sure. I'll give you the details later when everything is set up. For now, just enjoy your time here. You deserve a vacation after everything, so have fun. With this, the Eris Festival was guaranteed to be memorable. Now I just have to come up with a plan on how to not look like an absolute fool. My physical strength and speed was comparable to All Might's, but his decades of experience made that point nearly moot. I had to use my other skills to equalize the odds. And as a paladin, I had a good deal of tricks up my sleeve. My smirk turned mischievous as I made my way home to rest. The week was going to be a busy one, and I'd all the rest I could get. Izuku-kun, what was that about meeting you tonight for a trip to heaven? A voice that signaled doom rang across the field as I walked closer to the mansion. I guess my luck just ran out. Or got stronger, I'm not too sure. I can't feel my legs, was the first thing I said after waking up from the best night of my life. VIT is a bullshit stat, was the second thing I said. And equally true. 5 hours of non-stop action shouldn't be possible, yet here I am. I looked to my right to see the sleeping face of the goddess who changed my life. Good morning, Izuku-kun, Eris said with her eyes still closed. As she opened them, I could see why. I hate to ask this, Izuku-kun, but I can't move. Breakfast, please, she mumbled before falling back asleep. I guess she was even more tired than I was. The hunger hit me soon after she finished, so I decided it would be best to do as she said. Assuming Eris was equally hungry, I'll prepare 4 portions. Wait, Komko lives here now. 10 portions. I tried to get up only to notice that my legs were as heavy as lead, and my spine was on fire. Worth it was all I thought as I somehow put on all my clothes with just my hands. Crawling all the way to the kitchen was a bit more difficult though. Rough night, eh? A smug-looking All Might said from his seat at the dining table. Kazuma, Darkness, and Aqua were sitting around him, eating breakfast and probably talking about my old world. Yeah, laugh it up. I have no regrets, though I would appreciate it if one of you made Eris-chan and I some breakfast. I doubt that she's in a better position than I am at the moment. Kazuma sent me a dirty look but begrudgingly got up to make some more food. Rule number 13 of the New World Bro Code. If a bro is indisposed after a manly act, it is another bro's duty to serve him food and drink in exchange for a future favor. And as far as we were concerned, betting a goddess is worthy of being labeled a manly act. So, how was it? Darkness asked with the deepest blush on her face, mine most likely racing with the most risque ideas possible, which I shut down immediately. First of all, stop imagining Eris-chan in leather. Ape. Second of all, it was, pardon the pun, heavenly. That's all I can say. Please just ask Eris-chan. Seriously, there's a limit to the amount of awkwardness I can handle at one time. I tried to deflect, hoping that she'd be the only one to ask that question. What made it worse was that Aqua was giggling the whole time while whispering my geekish kuhai finally did it, as if we couldn't hear it when we were sitting less than a meter away from her. Never change, Aqua. Never change. So who's next? Darkness-chan. No, maybe we should let her cool down for a bit before that, Aqua said, pointing at the hyperventilating Darkness. How about Megumin-chan? Though that would be tough with her parents at home, same with Union. Don't tell me. You want a second goddess in a row, don't you? I have to warn Walbuck-chan, she exclaimed before running off at top speed, screaming at the top of her lungs. I take it back. Please change, Aqua. For my sake, if nothing else. I love my party. Truly I do. But why do most of them have to be so weird? Great All Might is giving me another smug smirk while Kazuma is spilling pancake batter all over himself from giggling too much. Sigh, at least I'll get to punch that smirk off his face later this week. A mischievous smile came to my face at the thought, and since my mind was on the festival, I might as well come up with some more things to liven it up. Fireworks and a sparring match were great and all, but there was much more to do. Aqua was already going to do her magic tricks around the city whether I asked her to or not. It was sure to make the Axis cult more popular too, so it was in her best interest, really. Kazuma and Eris had this whole stage magician act planned out. It honestly looked rather impressive. And with a little technical wizardry of my own, I managed to create some basic televisions to set in various places around the city. It was tough, but after making all those appliances, not to mention my armor, making a simple TV wasn't too difficult. Besides, it was pretty much essential to have them, along with several cameras and mages that could use flight magic. Otherwise, nobody would be able to see my spar with All Might. We'd have to get several hundred meters away at a minimum if we didn't want to level the whole city. Maybe we'll make an artificial lake. It would be great for tourism. Questions for later. For now, Kazuma set 2 plates, each holding a veritable mountain of pancakes topped with syrup and butter. But first, breakfast in bed with a goddess. My life is awesome, I thought with a permanent smile as I went back to my room, legs only barely recovered from earlier. One perfect breakfast later. Thank you, Izuku. I'll just stay here until I regain feeling in my lower body. Oh, and I've seen what you've been planning for my festival. I love it so far. Well, that was good. Can't exactly have a festival where the titular goddess hates the attractions. By the way, there's supposedly this divine armor named Aegis that is supposed to be around here. The other gods wanted me to collect it in exchange for a reduction to my sentence, but I'm gonna be honest, this has basically been a vacation for me, so take your time. She waved me off, not noticing how my face lit up then fell immediately. I guess being a god isn't all it's cracked up to be. I probably should look for that armor, but to be honest, is it even necessary at this point? We only have 2 demon generals left standing, only one of which is a direct fighter. I really need to contact the king later. This war was almost over. The enemy's command has been taken out. Their faith in Walbach was destroyed, and their soldiers were probably terrified. It's almost as if superpowers and scientific knowledge don't mix with medieval society. And a steep leveling system. Oh well, I wasn't about to look a gift horse in the mouth. What I should probably do is find IzuxHarem and see how his business talk with Vanner went. Hopefully the hangover isn't too bad. Walking over to Yui's room, I knocked on the door, not expecting a quick reply since it was still rather early. Imagine my surprise when I saw a still sleepy Konko answer with her mother nowhere to be found. Konko-chan, where's your mother? And did your dad come home after last night? I asked the droopy-eyed girl. Mom left over an hour ago. She said something about buying groceries without counting coins for once. Do you have food? I shake my head at that. This kid didn't even answer the second question, but I couldn't be too mad. Yeah, just head downstairs and the others should be able to make you some breakfast. Have a nice day. I ruffle her hair and head out. Chances were that I wouldn't be able to see her for the rest of the day. Axel Marketplace. I spotted her almost instantly. The tears of joy and large cart full of food didn't exactly make it difficult. Besides, the Crimson Demons were hardly the most subtle to begin with. Good morning, Yui-san. Enjoying the local goods, I see. Just try not to overdo it. Our kitchen can only hold so much. She blushed at being caught with so much but didn't look apologetic. Of course, Izuku-kun. Thank you again for giving my family this opportunity. If you're looking for my husband, he never came back after visiting Vanir-sen, so I'd check there. Anyway, this should be more than enough to feed us for the next few days. I wish you well, she exclaimed before walking off with enough food to feed several men for a few weeks. Or a few days with Konko, I suppose. Heading towards Wiz's shop, I was greeted with the sight of a crying IzuxHarem kneeling in a doji position while apologizing profusely to Vanir. Do I even want to know? I asked, not wanting but probably needing an answer. You just keep finding debt magnets, Izuku-kun. Fear not. Vanir-sama shall whip this wannabe demon into shape in no time at all. I just nodded and left. Though I did tell him not to use an actual whip during IzuxHaremu's training, earning a pout from the former general. You know, it's a sad day when this kind of shit becomes normal for me. First Aqua, then Wiz, and now IzuxHarem. Sigh. Hopefully Hiropo was doing better. I should probably check up on him. Besides, a quick solo quest might be fun. Guildhall. Farewell, my lady. Tell Izuku-sama that I wish him well, but the village needed me to return. I heard Hiropo say before he disappeared in a flash of light, presumably back to the village. And if Luna's face was anything to go by, he wouldn't be missed. By the gods, that was exhausting. Izuku-kun, you owe me for that. He just wouldn't stop bragging. And the worst part was that he kept posing for the entire time we spoke. Poor girl. I forgot that Crimson Demon diplomacy was unique to say the least. I'm so sorry. Tell you what, why not join me on a solo quest I was gonna do? We can hang out and I'll do all the work myself. Plus you can have the reward. I offered, which she considered for a bit before shaking her head. It's tempting, but that doesn't seem fair to you. Besides, I have I took out another pouch filled with gold and handed it to another waitress, getting similar results to last time. Right, you're filthy rich. I forget that sometimes. You know what? Sure, I could use a break and I've wanted to talk to you for a while now. And so our impromptu date began. It was pretty nice, all things considered. I took a simple monster elimination quest for a local lizard runner infestation. Normally they'd need a dedicated party to kill off, but with my recently acquired ranged weaponry proficiency and a freshly made assault rifle, I managed to pick off 50 feral lizards in under 5 minutes. After that was done, I moved the corpses off the field and we had a nice picnic together. So Izuku-kun, is what I heard about you and Eris-chan true? She asked with a mischievous tone. I gave an exasperated sigh at that. Wasn't it bad form to talk about other girls while on a date? I'm assuming you're asking about what happened last night. Then yes, we did have sex. But can we please not talk about that? I am still a little numb from it, honestly. It almost doesn't seem real, I admitted, though I immediately regretted the wording since Luna's smirk grew to twice its size. Oh, still numb from it, eh? Must have been pretty good then. A small glare from me stopped that right away. Okay, I'll stop. But just know that you don't have to be awkward about these things around us. She reassured me with a smile. We all love you and have come to terms with the fact that there will be others. Besides, I'm an adventurer's waitress. Gossip is in my blood. She joked. I guess Luna has a bit of a self-deprecating sense of humor. Gee, thanks, Luna-chan. I'll remember that, I said. A small smile was born as I watched the landscape all around us. It was rather beautiful from the tall hill we were sitting on. Though I would like to hear about that night of intense passion that left you of all people numb. And the smile died before it could truly live, snuffed out by the sensual tone of his gossiping girlfriend. Well, you can't have everything. Over the course of the week, massive progress on the IzuxHarem Festival had been made. And yes, it was now officially the IzuxHarem Festival, at least in Axel. A good percentage of the city developed an appreciation for the resident water goddess and decided that it was only fair to include the Axis cult into the celebration. The fact that Axis cultists were widely known as party animals probably had something to do with it too. Needless to say, a few more, let's call them risque forms of entertainment made their way into the festival. Segregated by age, of course. I had to push for that one. Damn it, Aqua. Damn it, Darkness, for enabling her. Damn it, Kazuma, for agreeing with Aqua for once. Sigh. Well, aside from the surprise debauchery, things were going relatively well. Kazuma, All Might, and I provided the local cooks with some staple Japanese festival food. The goddesses did the same, but with other cultures. Apparently there wasn't much to do up in heaven other than chatting and sampling various foods. I even provided some specific appliances for the foods that were too difficult to make with local technology. That, along with the usual festival games, would have already been enough, but I had another idea. My multiverse tablet had a headphone port. And the last time I checked, speakers weren't too difficult to make. You can see where I'm going with this. Music from Earth and across history was constantly playing over the various speakers that were spread around the city. Kazuma was especially interested since he was hearing music from a whole different timeline. Besides, who ever heard of a master-student battle without a cool song playing in the background? If you couldn't tell, I've recently found myself subscribing to Anime Logic, probably a side effect of spending too much time with Kazuma. Of course, as the party that both funded and planned the festival, we were expected to attend and enjoy ourselves, something that we had no issues with. Finally, an actual vacation that didn't involve demon generals, an enemy army, or some kind of colossal super weapon. Shit, did I just jinx that? No, I can't think that way. Just enjoy the festival, Deku. Enjoy the festival and wait to punch All Might in his smug, smirking face. Sensing me tense up, Yun and Megumin squeezed me from both sides, reminding me why I should be enjoying today. The other girls were going to join me too, but they each had other responsibilities. It was Eris Festival, so she had to make a few appearances around the city. Ironically, falling from grace was the best thing to happen to the Eris cult since it started. Faith was at an all-time high and cooperation between the churches were going relatively smoothly. Walbach joined her and Aqua for similar reasons, trying to see if she could spread Walbach worship slowly through the city and then the kingdom, since a good few tourists came to see the rumored attraction. Darkness was, well, she was very interested in the adult section when Aqua brought it up. I doubt I'll be seeing her anytime soon. Wiz was extremely busy with her shop today, the festival providing a nice boost in business. Luna was the same with the Adventurers Guild. Controlling the rowdier members was something only she seemed to be able to do. Not that I was really complaining. As much as having 7 girls hanging onto you would boost your ego, it was hardly feasible. Especially for a former nerd who just graduated from boyhood. I can barely handle 1 girl at a time, let alone 7. Baby steps, Deku, baby steps. Plus, with these 2 I can relegate myself to the background while they do their usual antics. I know that traditionally I was supposed to play the festival games and win the girls some prizes, but there was one tiny obstacle to that. Well, 2 actually. First of all, we were filthy stinking rich. So winning a prize wasn't all that special when you could just buy out the whole stand. Of course, there was still the sentimental value of trying and failing to beat the often rigged games, but there lied the second problem. I have become too strong, I thought as I beat the 5th accuracy-based festival game in a row, denying the prize like the last few times. Participating in these games was effectively cheating with all of the passive skills and the sheer stats that I had. It just didn't feel right, especially when everyone else was trying their best to get those prizes. The girls understood, which is why they were trying their hardest to win me a prize. Kaken would never let me hear the end of this. Then again, he doesn't have a harem, so what does he know? Izuku-kun, look what we got you, isn't it cute? Yunyun broke me out of my trance by shoving a big yellow duck plushie into my face. A duck that just so happened to have spiky hair and angry-looking eyebrows. She couldn't have known. Is that asshole messing with me again? Either way, I gave them a practiced smile that I honed through years of ignoring Kaken, an instinctual reaction that I couldn't help but a welcomed one in this case. Thanks, you too. It reminds me of an old friend from back home. Are you two enjoying the games? I tried to change the subject. Yeah, they're so much fun, especially those gun games that Kazuma-kun made. So much more fun than using a bow and arrow. Of course, Megumin would love guns. Relatively large, cool-looking staffs that use miniature explosions to launch metal at an opponent at the speed of sound. Lowly Chuni, yes please. I'm glad. I know it must be boring to be here with me since I can't really do much. So I'm happy that you two are still having fun. They gave me a glare at that, hating when I self-deprecating like that. Sorry, I ruined the mood. Let's keep going. I'm sure you're both hungry after running around for the last few hours. The twin grumbles that came immediately after was my answer. 9 spicy ikayaki sticks later and some kakigori to wash it down ended with 3 satisfied stomachs and 2 very happy demon girls. Those were so delicious. What was that, Izuku-kun? It tasted like seafood, but I've never tasted something like that before. Oh, that's ikayaki, a popular festival food from Japan. It's just grilled squid topped with soy sauce. The girls froze at that, processing what they just heard. The prey has become the predator. Oh boy, I guess those stories made their way to this world too. I think that's my cue to leave. I need to prepare for my fight with All Might anyway. Sorry to leave so suddenly, but I need to warm up for my sparring match with All Might Sensei. Enjoy the festivals, you will please don't mention this darkness. Knowing when to pick my battles was a difficult lesson to learn, but I like to think that I had some self-preservation instinct in me, so I ran like my reputation depended on it, which it probably did. I ran back to the mansion to pick up all my gear, my full set, 2 greatswords that I made myself out of a hyper-durable carbon nanotubes. I even created a chest piece for the full set. It doesn't do much for my quirk, but there's something to be said about an armor that can tank blows from All Might. I didn't even bother grabbing my veritable armory of bows or guns. Projectile weapons would be next to worthless against All Might unless I want to try my hand at making a portable railgun. And even then, All Might would probably be able to dodge it if not outright tank it. Well, the obvious solution to winning would be to dip my blades in poison and just fight normally, but that didn't feel right. Besides, I want to fight All Might head on. It's been months since we faced each other during finals, and I wanted to see how far I've come. We had agreed to meet several kilometers west of Axel. There was a small wasteland there, filled with nothing but arid land, small plateaus, and the occasional abandoned copper mine. In other words, it was a bunch of useless land just waiting to be turned into usable real estate. Third-person POV. Young Midoriya, it's time. And I must say you've grown into a splendid hero since coming here. A year ago we had your final exams, and I think we can both agree that you've had several years' worth of experience since you arrived. Consider this battle to be your graduation. If he was being honest, Izuku had already matched him as a hero. He was the most well-known and widely known hero in the country and was widely considered the most powerful adventurer in Belzerk. He was responsible for the defeat and capture of several enemy generals known for their strength and brutality. And he was most well known for his defeat of the natural disaster class threat, the Destroyer. As far as reputation went, Izuku matched All Might in all but age. Give him a few decades and he'd probably be revered as a demigod by the people. And that's not even mentioning the startling progress that he's made in the political sector through his noble influence. If it were anyone else, All Might have been concerned over them going power hungry. Good, different world or not, I don't want to stay a high school dropout for the rest of my life, Izuku quipped while he prepared for the fight, unsheathing his blades and entering a fighting stance, both blades in front of him, one for All's lighting aura surrounding him. It's been a while since I've fought a swordsman. Don't think the extra range is going to guarantee anything. After all, a greatsword's greatest strength is also its greatest weakness. And with that the fight began, All Might charging in at full speed, trying to close the distance, making the sword's length a drawback rather than an advantage. He most likely assumed that Izuku would be too slow to stop him, or that his swords would be too bulky to counter properly. This was quickly proven to be false as one of Izuku's fingers flexed, sending a quick Delaware smash at All Might. slowing down his charge just enough for Izuku to create some distance. Using that distance, Izuku utilized the second advantage that his blades gave him. Escalon Smash, he called as he sent a compressed pressure wave towards All Might. It was much larger and denser than his regular smashes, which All Might nearly found out the hard way. Using his decades of experience, All Might managed to dodge the invisible attack. Barely. It still cut off a good few hairs and managed to slice his nose a bit. The earth behind him wasn't so lucky as it split in half, leaving a several-meter deep gash in the ground. Did you just use the wind scar? All Might tried to ask, but was punched in the face for his mistake of taking his eyes off Izuku. Right? Fight now? Questioned my otaku successor later. Thankfully, Izuku's punches weren't quite as strong as his own. Not so thankfully, his speed has far surpassed his own. I need to attack at his mobility. With the rudimentary plan in mind, All Might let out a Detroit smash straight at the ground, forming a sizable crater that took out the ground beneath Izuku's feet, his momentum carrying him further in a predictable line. All Might took this opportunity to clothesline Izuku, stunning him but only for a second since his new chest plate absorbed most of it. Blessing of agility, Izuku exclaimed, boosting his speed knowing he was going to need it. With that, he used the tried and true technique of legends that would give him victory. Nidrandeo. Izuku booked it the hell out of there and hid behind a group of plateaus. Guildhall Kazuma POV. Salute. That is all. Back to the fight. Blessing of strength. Blessing of constitution. Blessing of luck. Izuku whispered, preparing his assault as the plateaus around him were crushed in a single hit each. 5 minutes at 200%. With that constitution boost, I should be able to go 100% without consequence. Gotta make it count, he exclaimed before jumping over his hiding spot while sending out 2 more Escalon smashes at his mentor. All Might tried to respond in kind with 2 Texas smashes, but he soon found that to be a horrible idea. Even with his base power, the 2 slash attacks would be stronger than a basic smash from All Might. The counter smashes were meant to dissipate or redirect the slashes, but with his enhancements making his attacks twice as strong, they did little more than slow it down. Shit, All Might cursed after he saw his attacks be swatted away like nothing, barely dodging in time to avoid being bisected. Young Midoriya is really going for the kill. I guess it makes sense since healing magic is a thing, but does he have to cut me in half? Jeez. Wait a minute. Are you still mad about the time I nearly broke your spine? His answer came in the form of a great sword being thrown at his left lung, which actually managed to nick his torso a bit. HRK. I'll take that as a maybe. Let it be known that Izuku can in fact hold a grudge. Guildhall Eris POV. Get him, Izuku-kun. Nobody puts those divine hips at risk and gets away with it. Guess All Might just made an enemy. And if the drool coming from the female adventurers were anything to go by, Izuku gained some new admirers. Back to the fight. To Izuku's annoyance, All Might picked up his discarded sword and tried his luck with it. And while he was no master swordsman, he got the gist of it real quick. The gist being swinging it at full power to mimic Izuku's Escalon smash. Damn my poor impulse control. I just gave All Might a sword. That has to be against the Quirk Geneva Convention or something. The green hero thought as he tried his best to dodge his own move, which was easier said than done, especially when he was stuck in midair. The wind blade managed to hit his left hand as he used a Delaware smash to maneuver himself, taking 2 fingers in the process. Guildhall Eris again. Stop taking his best qualities, Eris yelled out once again, forgetting the fact that regrowing fingers was child's play for her senpai. Though she didn't fail to see how the drool from earlier turned to blood from the realization of what a high agility stat could do. There was bound to be some revisions in the Eris faith in the near future. Back to the 2 dudes trying to murder each other. Izuku POV. Question. What is the easiest way to defeat a swordsman? Answer. Usually a gun. Better question. What is the easiest way to defeat All Might with a sword? Answer. Another All Might with a sword. Or more specifically, a Deku with a sword. I guess it was foolish to think that these things could hold up to several thousand gigajoules worth of power. Chemical bonds can only do so much when faced with atomic power. The 2 blades snapped in half after the first few collisions. The strongest material known to man was useless in the face of the 2 human nukes. We hadn't accounted for this level of destruction. The former wasteland could now be described as a giant crater, or more generously as a future lake. Thankfully, that nuclear analogy was only true power-wise. Otherwise, this place would be uninhabitable for centuries. This fight was more than either of us had bargained for. We were both very different from the last time we met, combat-wise at least. My changes were obvious. The old me never used a sword, and more importantly, never had the full set. I'd be the first to admit that my moveset was far from original, but it worked well enough. All Might, on the other hand, had regressed, and not in a bad way. His injury was gone, and even though it had only been a few weeks since he arrived in this world, his progress towards recovery was easy to see. He couldn't be called a skeleton anymore, though he was still skinny. His muscle form was equally buffed up, even compared to how it usually was. I'm fighting All Might. And not just a weakened husk like he was back on Earth. This is the closest I've seen him to his prime self. My inner nerd doesn't know how to process this. I said out loud, getting a laugh from my mentor. Well, whatever it does, don't let it interfere with the fight. I haven't had this much fun in years. And he meant it too, it was clear on his face. As the symbol of peace, he didn't have many who would fight him, and those that tried rarely gave him much of a challenge. All for One was an exception, and he could safely say that fighting that madman was anything but fun. Good to hear, sensei. Though I think it's time I ended this. This power boost has its downsides, and I have less than 2 minutes left until it's over. Sound familiar? A quirk of an eyebrow told me he didn't for a moment. Then I pointed at my forehead and his face showed recognition. Aw shit, was all he could say before I was on him. My superior speed making closing the distance a simple matter when we were both on the ground. I started the assault with a simple right jab at All Might's solar plexus. It was an obvious move which made his quick block easy to predict. What it did help me do was disguise the knee that came right after, aimed at All Might's left side. Once again, it was an obvious move. A habit that made sense for me since I was one of the few that knew about his old weak spot. That's exactly what I wanted him to think. Now that my left arm and right knee were held up, I took a page from All Might's book and launched a Detroit smash right at the ground beneath us. This made him lose his footing. His attention still stuck on my knee when I did it. He held his grip firm though, which limited my options. Good thing that I was no stranger to breaking bones for a win. Twisting my leg and arm at an admittedly painful angle, I cocked back my left leg and sent a full-powered kick to All Might's chest, right at the center. The shock from having the bones in his grip snap took All Might by surprise. So much so that he didn't notice the kick coming until it was too late. The blow connected, sending him flying back, taking my right foot with him. FFF foo. Damn it. Why? Foo, I let myself curse internally, before focusing on the finishing move. Letting myself land and immediately launching myself at the stunned All Might with my only foot, I quickly flew past him and did my own clothesline. But unlike me, All Might didn't have armor to take the hit for him. The blow sent him in the opposite direction. Blood flying from his mouth, showing me that the hit did significant damage to his lungs or stomach, but I wasn't done yet. Damn it, I missed. I was going to grab him by his shirt. What little of it remained, in order to continue the barrage of blows, but he flew off faster than I could catch. He's going to recover quickly. Damn, I don't have much time left. If I could only. My mental searching was cut off by a peculiar feeling. It was a feeling tinged with anger, but mostly it felt like conviction. That was all I felt before a large, black tendril left my hand and caught All Might, locking him in place before launching him back at me. Reacting on instinct, I punched him one last time in the chin, knocking him out just like that. I won. I actually won. At least, that's what I would have thought if not for what happened seconds earlier. Well, what the hell was that? The thought echoed in my mind, even as I picked up my mentor and rushed him to the guild hall for healing. Whatever it was, it could wait until later. So, losing a foot to win a fight wasn't my smartest move, I muttered while dragging my broken body across the wasteland. Doing it several miles away from civilization was an additional blunder. Forgetting that I had to carry an unconscious All Might, who wasn't as thin as he used to be the whole way, was yet another one. I've had a severe, continuous lapse in judgment, and the side effects of using my blessings were kicking in. Each movement across the ground felt like sandpaper touching raw flesh. My bones felt like lead, and the two adventurers that were filming everything were either out of mana, or were not nearly strong enough to lift both myself and All Might. At least the fight was awesome. Hopefully these magic items that you gave us were able to keep up with your ridiculous speed. I know I couldn't. Dust, who had stayed on the ground, commented. He was helping me keep balance on my one leg, but not much else. The combined weight of myself, my armor, and All Might made it impossible for him to carry the burden. I'm just glad that we decided to step back a good deal before you two started. Those punches sent out shockwaves for several kilometers. What kind of magic was that, by the way? Lean, the wizard in Dust's party who bared a stunning resemblance to Kazuma, asked. It's a genetic ability that we both have. It amplifies the user's physical power, among other things. I explained to the best of my ability, not mentioning that it can be passed down, of course, though I had no idea whether that was possible with humans from this world, or the one Kazuma came from. Genetic. Does that mean that All Might-sama is your father, Izuku-sama? Lean asked, nearly tripping over himself. Dust was equally surprised and waiting for an answer. No, or at least we aren't related by blood. Hey, if Kazuma is gonna be my surrogate brother, then All Might could be my dad. He already acts like one. Our situation is a bit unique, and I thought I asked you two to just call me Izuku. The same goes for All Might. Neither of us are very big on formality, especially not from some of Kazuma's friends. It feels weird to be called that by people I actually knew. I get what you mean, man. Pretentious titles and stuffy high society crap loses its glamour pretty quick, doesn't it? Dust commented, sounding as if he spoke from experience. We spent the rest of the walk back to the city swapping stories. Kazuma's made some good friends. They even distracted me enough that I didn't notice myself passing out from the blood loss. Izuku dreamscape. Why do I feel sand? was my first thought after regaining consciousness, though I didn't get to question things further before someone spoke right in front of me. "Ah, you're finally awake," a voice spoke. The accent was familiar. Somebody already used that bit. I mumbled as I opened my eyes to see a rather large, bald man that had a passing resemblance to a certain demonic superhero from pre-Quirk comics. Damn, thought I was being clever. Though it's good to see that old gem of a meme survived for generations to come. Sup kid, if you haven't figured it out yet, I'm a former wielder of OFA, the second one specifically. And that technique you used back there was my own quirk, Black Whip. Okay. My eyes widened a little, but this isn't even close to the weirdest thing that happened to me. Hell, I would have thought you'd have a stronger reaction than that. He deflated a bit at my nonchalance. I just waved him off while muttering that it wasn't my first time dealing with ghosts, or at least I tried to anyway, but my hand refused to move, mostly because it wasn't there anymore. Okay, I could have sworn that it was my foot that I lost in that fight, not my hands. Speaking of feet, I had both of them in this weird dream-like world I found myself in. From what I could see, a good quarter of my body was just gone, Valkwisps escaping from where they were supposed to be. You haven't fully mastered OFA yet, though seeing such progress in a youngin like you is pretty surprising. I guess you could access 60% of it, maybe 70% before you injure yourself. Not bad for a couple years of training. That sounds about right, though I owe most of that progress to my new world's bullshit game physics. You said that I used your quirk. Does that mean? I left the obvious question unanswered. The previous user gained a contemplative look. Honestly, I have no idea. This has never happened before, but I think we both know what this implies. Congrats, kid. You'll be gaining a few new quirks in the coming years. Hat and the ability to meet the previous users. Wait a second. Are the quirks going to come in chronological order? The first user was effectively quirkless, which makes sense why he was skipped. And you're the second, unless there's some other factor that I'm not aware of. I entered into a mutter-filled trance once again. Old habits die hard, I guess. Quiet. I shut up. Yeesh, kid, you sure can run your mouth. As for your question, I'm not sure. Like I said, this has never happened before. You might be right and it's chronological. Or maybe each quirk will appear under specific circumstances. I don't know. You'll just have to see. I guess that was fair. This would be asking too much to have all the answers given to me. What I do know is that I don't have much time left. You'll be waking up soon, so pay attention. My quirk works off emotion. If you have them under control, then you should be able to use it just fine. But be careful. One for All would have heightened its power far beyond its original strength, so try not to use it on people unless they want to be crushed under the iron grip. With that final warning, the user's body faded away. My own vision was consumed by a white light as I started to wake up. Guildhall. Splash go. PFD. Why? I yelled after getting ice-cold water dumped on me. The obvious culprit whistling and looking away from me while the rest of my party was making sure I was okay. Did you have to use the ice water method, Aqua-chan? I glared at her, but it had no heat in it. Hickanite told me to do it. Aqua quickly shifted the blame to the boy who was trying to hide his chuckles. Damn it, you useless goddess. Don't throw me under the bus just because you were too stupid to hide the bucket. Kazuma knew when he's been caught and admitted to it, but not before making sure Aqua went down with him. Sigh, not important. I'll deal with you two later. Where's All Might? I asked. Apparently he was still unconscious from the fight. I must have hit him harder than I thought, but the good news was that all his injuries were healed. He was just tired. Speaking of the fight, what the hell was that black energy that you used at the end? Have you been holding out on us, Aniki? Kazuma questioned, partially due to his own curiosity, but mostly to make me forget about the ice water. Nice try, but no, payback will come. Apparently it's another quirk. I'll be getting 5 more of those in a bit. As for the one I used against All Might, all I know is that it's called Black Whip. Hey, well, Black Whip of energy that has enough power to crush stone from what I could tell. Slam. That was darkness. She passed out after my explanation with a bleeding nose and an atomic blush on her face. Eris burst out in laughter immediately after, while the rest of the guild just sweat dropped at their strongest party's strange antics. I probably should have seen that coming. I muttered. Darkness is going to keep bugging me until I use it on her, isn't she? I felt a tap on my shoulder. Turning around, I saw that it was Iris. She looked happy and relieved. Did something happen? I need to speak to you in private, Izuku-kun. Please follow me, she said in Japanese. This must be really important if she's going this far to keep what she wants to say a secret. I follow her as we head back to the mansion for some privacy. The others stayed behind to enjoy the rest of the festival and to look after All Might until he wakes up. Team Green Mansion. I'm not sure how to sugarcoat this, so I'll just go ahead and say it. Izuku-kun, you just saved me from an arranged marriage and Belzerg in general. Name your reward and I'll give it to you. Iris bowed to me with a serious expression, though I could only think of one response appropriate for this situation. Nene, sigh. Sorry, I should probably explain. You see, it all started when our neighboring nations stopped supporting Belzerg financially. Iris went on to explain the details behind Belzerg's current economic troubles due to the war and the recent cut to their funds. Apparently, Belzerg was going nearly bankrupt before I came to this world. It got so bad that the king was even contemplating an arranged marriage between Iris and a neighboring country's prince in exchange for monetary support. Luckily, the policies we've adopted in Axel, along with the proliferation of some of our easily replicated technology, managed to give the country a considerable boost. For one, Belzerg could now feed its population at a fraction of the cost and land area that was previously needed. And the Adventurers Guild had adopted many of our policies as well, leading to an increase in production and a decrease to security costs, which have been redistributed to other necessities. Of course, systematic elimination of the enemy generals probably had something to do with the war's falling costs. And then there was the festival. Did it even need to be said? The tourism revenue alone already won Belzerg a chunk of change. And that was before they had several world-famous heroes in their borders. In Axel, the festival pretty much acted as one big advertising campaign for the city and its new wares. The fight between All Might and myself was just icing on the cake. To sum it all up, our party effectively dragged Belzerg out of an economic recession and into an economic boom the likes of which has never been seen in this world. Which would explain why Iris was acting the way she was. I think I understand. At least a little. I'm not going to lie. Large-scale economics and politics isn't my strong suit. It's hard enough partially ruling over a city, I exclaimed, trying to put some levity into the situation. Honestly, it was still hard to believe that my life has ended up like this. But I can only imagine how much stress you must have been in with things like that going on. Just know that I don't need anything in return. If I had known about it from the start, then I would have helped you anyway. You don't owe me any. I was cut off by Iris pushing herself into me, giving me a tight hug. I was caught off guard at first but returned it. Poor Iris must have been worried half to death over this. Slowly she went limp as time passed, her emotional state exhausting her. I picked her up in a bridal-style carry and moved her to her room. I was about to leave, but Iris' hand gripped me tightly. I looked down to see her eyes telling me to stay with her. Kazuma is never going to let me hear the end of this. Neither will Eris now that I think about it. Whatever, I'll deal with that in the morning. For now, I'll just enjoy the fact that I'm sleeping with an actual princess, granted not in the way that most thought about. Tomorrow was going to be a busy day, so we should get all the rest we should get. Waking up feeling groggy after a day like yesterday was expected. Honestly, I was surprised that I didn't collapse from exhaustion earlier, but I guess Aqua's healing was as good as always. Feeling someone else's breathing and body heat next to me was also expected. Eris tended to raid the bed on occasion, and even Megumin accidentally found herself in my room and too tired to turn back from time to time. Though the surprising part was who was in my bed. I'm glad I could help, but keeping all that stress for so long really took a toll on her. I thought while looking at the sleeping form of Iris. I almost didn't want to get out of bed with the way she was clinging on to me. She'd definitely wake up if I tried. Maybe I should just sleep in for today. It's been a while since I've just relaxed like a normal pea. Explosion. Boom. Never mind, I muttered as Iris quickly jolted from her slumber, frantically looking around for the cause of the ungodly noise. Sorry about the rude awakening, Iris-chan. I guess Megumin-chan couldn't hold it in any longer and let out an explosion a bit too close to the mansion. I tried to calm her down, which works after a bit, until she realized where exactly she woke up at. Ape. She jumped out of bed, wide awake and staring at me with wide eyes, probably thinking about how she got there since she calms down soon after. My apologies, Izuku-kun. I was startled, she said, blushing profusely from her earlier lack of composure. I just smile at her. She was like this sometimes. She usually keeps her composure as was expected of a royal princess, but when something surprises her she reverts back to being a regular young girl, which leaves her embarrassed afterward. But anyways, I'm sorry for what happened last night. I guess you were right. The stress was doing more damage than I thought it would. Her shoulders sagged, as if a massive weight was lifted. She gave me a bright smile and thanked me one more time before heading off. I decided to let her go for now. She seemed like she needed a bit of time to think. In the meantime, I'm just going to check up on Megumin. She's gotten better in the last few months, but her blowing things up so close to the mansion was a bad sign. I swear to the various gods if this was Kazuma's idea. I grumbled internally, coming up with various revenge plans if it turned out to be true. Stepping outside, I heard several more explosions. Before I reached the backyard there, I noticed a giant new creator where an empty plane used to be. And was that Aqua? Splash. Apparently it was, since I don't know anyone else that could fill up a creator that big with water so quickly. Explain, I ordered simply, not wanting to beat around the bush. I wasn't too angry about them doing this, but Iris might disagree. Plus, I really wanted to know why they decided to make a lake in our backyard all of a sudden. Though knowing those two, do I really need to ask? You and Yagi-kun made a lake with your monstrous strength, so I wanted to prove that explosion magic could match it. Megumin answered predictably, smirk on her face even as she face-planted from the mana exhaustion. I'm a goddess of water. We made a lake. Do I really need to explain? Fair enough. I guess this isn't all bad. We could do a lot with our own lake, though the mosquitoes would be a problem unless we deal with them early. Guess I have to invent pesticide next. Or commit genocide. Mosquitoes aren't vital to the ecosystem, right? If it were the modern age, I would have said no. But with nature being much more lively in this world, maybe they are necessary here. Note to self, develop a research and development branch in Axel. Magic was great and all, but humans didn't become the dominant species by waving around sticks and yelling magic words. At least I don't think they did in this world. Add historians to that list of additions. I mentally noted, a lot goes into running a city after all. Did you two at least warn the others before making all that noise so close to th? I was interrupted by multiple war cries behind me as Darkness and Kazuma rushed out of the mansion, weapons in hand. Said war cries slowly died down after they noticed that the noise was caused by their own party instead of an enemy attack. And if Kazuma's twitching eyebrow was anything to go by, Aqua and Megumin were going to be in for a bad time later today. I wasn't going to save them from it either, still a bit salty from the rude wake-up call. Well, if you'll excuse me, I have to report the creation of a new lake. And all the paperwork that comes with it. Again, and this time I didn't have the luxury of doing it ahead of time. Marvelous. Guildhall. And sign here if you want Axel to import plant life, fish and such into your new lake. In exchange, you'll earn a percentage of the taxes from any fishing occurring said lake, along with a small toll paid directly to you for entering your property. Luna finished up with the paperwork as I signed the 100th document that hour. At least I was getting some income out of this, not that I needed it. I even denied that toll idea since I found it unnecessary. The land where the new lake was made wasn't too close to our mansion, just a few hundred meters away. And that should be everything. Thank you for the new source of income, Mayor-san, she said teasingly. I just sighed at the title. Technically, I was only the co-mayor along with Darkness, but the citizens of Axel didn't see it that way. And Darkness was all too happy to be relegated to being my secretary. Way too happy. And thank you for making this as painless as possible. My hand is still numb, I said, shaking my hand to try and get circulation back into it. Hopefully this will be the last new lake for a while. Otherwise I'll have to revoke Megumin's explosion privileges and Aqua's alcohol, but I couldn't really blame her for doing her job as a goddess. No problem at all, boss. Thank you for effectively tripling my income with the ridiculous boost in tourism you brought over. Wait, triple? No wonder she was so happy today. And with the way she was looking at me. Oh boy. She decided that since I had nothing else to do that day, and since she just finished a relatively massive order, that it was about time for her to take a break for the day. A break that involved me, herself, the attic, and about 2 hours of the day. 2 hours later, Kazuma POV. I came to the Guildhall for lunch like usual. Maybe I'd say hi to Aniki, who had to do all the paperwork for that new lake the girls made. Poor bastard. Or so I thought before I noticed a disheveled, tired-looking Izuku leaving the Guildhall through the back door with a goofy grin on his face. What really changed my mind was the way he was looked at by an equally disheveled and practically glowing Luna, who just kept staring at him as he walked off. Lucky bastard. Tisk, whatever. So what if Aniki has a harem? So what if he's stronger than me in every way? So what if he has a higher luck stat? So what if he became a man while he's even younger than me? So what if, okay, now I'm depressed? Well, the bar's right over there, so let's fix that. All Might POV. Oh god. Anybody get the number of that truck? That was one hell of a fight. Easily the second hardest I've fought in my life. I'm so proud of that kid. He's really come into his own. But what was that weird black energy? Magic. Whatever it was pretty strong. Yagi-kun, are you awake? His new girlfriend KH Lo asked as she entered the room. And wasn't that a strange thought? I actually had a girlfriend now. Something I never thought I would experience after becoming the symbol of peace. No, that time is over. This is my life now. I think before shaking off my thoughts. Yeah, I just woke up now. How long have I been out? It had to be a day at least. I still felt exhausted. It was a wonder how I was even conscious right now. You've been asleep for about a day and a half. It's noon right now. I was a little worried, and it showed in her tone of voice. Frowning slightly, I moved in to hug her, hoping that it would be enough to push away her worries. You don't have to worry. I've survived much worse. Besides, I doubt young Midoriya would allow me to die again. Wait, did I just? Crap. You're right, but that doesn't stop me from worrying. Just because you already died once doesn't mean that you should be fine with doing it twice. Wait, she already knew about that. My surprise must have been rather visible since she giggled soon after. Izuku-sama and his friends have been living here for over a year now. And just between you and me, they aren't the best at keeping secrets. Pretty much all of Belzerg knows about the goddesses, and reincarnations have become common knowledge, at least in Axel. Well, that was a sobering thought. Though with how some of his successors' friends acted on occasion, he could definitely see why. I prepared lunch, by the way. Can you walk? Good question. I slowly climb out of bed and give my feet an experimental push to the floor. They seemed steady enough, so I slowly stood up, still aching a bit from the fight but not enough to make me double over. Walking would be slow for a while, but I'd be fine. Seeing me struggle, Lo helped carry a bit of weight as we headed down to the kitchen. Have I missed anything while I was out? Judging by the fact that I could see a lake that wasn't there before just outside the house, I assumed so. Yes. I was honestly surprised when it happened and you didn't wake up. You see, Lo went on to describe what happened while I was asleep, though she didn't know everything. Right, I forgot about young Midoriya's little firecracker. Or should I say nuclear warhead. That kid has the strangest luck with women. I guess that explains why nobody's around right now. I mumbled before sitting down to eat some breakfast. Or lunch, I guess. Now seemed like a good time to just relax for a bit. There would be time for work later. Not like there's much work to be done around here anyway. Young Midoriya and his party has done a marvelous job cleaning up around the city. There's barely any crime and most of them are petty. Though to be fair, when the city guard consists of highly trained warriors, people that can shoot fire from their hands, and the occasional super soldier that can level buildings, I could see how that would act as a deterrent. Knock knock knock, him, who could be visiting? I questioned out loud. Sure, the Green Party was incredibly popular, along with being the local rulers of the city. But that doesn't equal a lot of visitors. The opposite, in fact. Most people that wanted to see them had to go through the bureaucracy and meet them at City Hall. Opening the door, I saw a young woman wearing a rather intricate set of full-plate armor, to the point where I questioned the practicality of it. The second thing to catch my eye would be the fact that she was bowing right off the bat, the universal sign that someone wanted something from you. Oh boy, is this the lost knight in search of a new lord trope? I knew it was just a matter of time with what young Midoriya has become. He's not here right now though. Should I let her in? Wait, could she be here for me instead? I may have been jumping the gun there. Or now that I think about it, I was underselling the situation. Either way, I was proven wrong the moment the woman opened her mouth. Yagi-sama, I am Pandora Sanguine. I have come here today as the last leader of the Demon King's army in order to formally surrender to you and Midoriya-sama. I would like to begin negotiations as soon as possible. She finished, ending her deep bow and raising her head. My jaw dropped the moment she finished speaking, blood seeping out of my mouth for the first time in weeks. Now that she was looking at me, I noticed the bright red eyes she had, and the barely visible fangs protruding from her lips. Explains the Nam. No, wait. Focus. Young Midoriya isn't here right now. Would you like to come inside for some tea? When in doubt, be polite. Now I just have to stall for time before young Midoriya gets here. He's more experienced with these things and knows more about politics in this world than I do. Hearing this all go down, Lo rushed to the kitchen to prepare that tea. Good thing to know I wasn't alone in this at least. Meanwhile, with Izuku, a tickle went down my spine as my hair spiked up into goosebumps. A feeling I got whenever something indescribably stupid happened around him. Strangely enough, I couldn't see anything near me that would trigger such a response. That could be a bad sign. And I was just about to get revenge on Kazuma and Aqua for that ice water nonsense they pulled yesterday too. Possible catastrophe. Sweet, sweet revenge. Sigh, you two live another day. I decided before walking back towards the mansion, and unknowingly towards another headache. This is excellent tea, Pandora complimented as she sipped the steaming brew. I'll be honest, I didn't expect such a warm reception from the enemy leader, or second in command. That had always been a matter of debate ever since All Might entered the scene. Izuku was the only other candidate, but ever since the blonde arrived it was thrown in question. Thank you. It's a hobby I picked up over the years, and neither actually. I'm just a humble hero who looks after this city. Izuku's the one that deals with the country's issues for the most part, he replied with a hint of pride in his voice. He was more than happy to semi-retire, especially when his successor did a better than fine job of replacing him. From Japan, I assume. Such an interesting place, even more so with these. Heroes is what you called them. I see that the gods have finally started taking us seriously if they sent such powerful warriors from a different world than usual. The usual reincarnates were powerful, sure, but they were usually incompetent. What else could you expect from a bunch of otherwise regular people plucked from their worlds and sent into a completely different one? Since she'd arrived at their mansion, Pandora had been treated with respect and courtesy, a kindness not often afforded to the losers of a war. Oh yes, she had no illusions over the fact that her country had lost. Even with their remaining army, they could do little without their powerful generals. Not to mention, so Vandersen became a bureaucrat. Honestly, it doesn't surprise me. He was always the type to do as he pleased, even if it made no sense at the time. What surprised her more was the fact that Walbach of all people was enamored by the enemy leader. Granted, she had never met him, so she couldn't judge, but he couldn't be that impressive, could he? Bang. Switch to Izuku POV. Did you really need to break down the door, Aqua-chan? I asked the goddess that joined me on my walk back home with an exasperated voice. After facepalming as is customary when being around Aqua for more than 20 minutes, I noticed that we had a new guest. The intricate dark armor was rather eye-catching, but her facial features immediately caught my attention. She was a platinum blonde, her hair being nearly white in color, though slightly darker than Eris pure silver. Her face had aristocratic features, though it was her eyes and teeth that told me exactly what she was. I'm telling you, Izuku-kun, I sensed a powerful undead on our way here. Hey you, with the pink eye, how did you get into our house with the barrier surrounding this place? She screamed at our guest while pointing at her, though her target just kept sipping tea nonchalantly. Regardless, I gave Aqua's head a good chop to calm her down. That's enough of that, Aqua-chan. First of all, I got rid of that barrier a week ago, remember? Otherwise Wiz-chan would never be able to visit us. And second of all, apologize to our guest. Undead or not, pointing at someone like that is rude. I scolded, making her grumble before she begrudgingly bowed slightly in apology. You're a lot more polite than I expected. Though with Yagi-sama's show of hospitality, that's my own fault. It is an honor to meet you, Midoriya-sama. I am Pandora Sanguine. I have come here today as the last leader of the Demon King's army in order to formally surrender to you and Yagi-sama. I would like to begin negotiations as soon as possible. She finished, stating her purpose before bowing deeply once again. I see. That was all I could really say. Who the hell would expect this? And why did she surrender to me specifically and not Belzerg itself? There are too many questions here. I should gather everyone else before we do anything. About an hour later, in the kitchen. So, what caused this surrender all of a sudden? Not that I'm not grateful for the chance at peace, of course. I wanted to know exactly where we stood. The more information the better. Iris was of a like mind on that. Speaking of which, she was currently sending Pandora one of the frostiest glares I've ever seen. It's not so difficult to understand, Izuku-sama. We've simply lost the war, in every way that counts. Our army has slowly but surely been eroded by the armies of Belzerg. Our economy was never that strong to begin with, and now that you've shown how far behind we are technologically, we'll be crushed in that area too, she explained calmly, and with a hint of amusement at our question. Furthermore, you've single-handedly killed, converted, or otherwise incapacitated 6 of our generals, the only hope we had of fighting the veritable monsters in Belzerg's royal family. Okay, that was fair. Thinking about it, the fact that a 14-year-old like Iris could hold her own against legendary monsters and other experienced adventurers was pretty ludicrous. That's not even mentioning her father, who could probably rival All Might in raw stats. For now, the jury's still out if he'd rival a fully healed All Might. There's also the fact that a good deal of our own citizens view you as a hero for your destruction of the Destroyer, an existence that has plagued the world for centuries, including our own side. Right, I'd almost forgotten about that one. My brain must have been blocking it out to forget the ungodly pain I felt from breaking every bone in my body. There's also the fact that you now have 3 goddesses working for you. At this point, most of the high-ranking officers in my army are convinced that the only reason you haven't stormed my father's castle yet is because you were genuinely merciful and wanted us to surrender. Well, that was better than I heard that you were secretly planning to weaken Belzerg and our own country first before taking over both in a bid for eventual world domination. Fuck. No. I don't want power. Hell, being a noble is already enough of a headache as it is. Being a king, let alone an emperor, sounds like a nightmare. I denied furiously. Seriously, just thinking about it was making my hands numb. All that paperwork would kill me before any assassin could even try. I'd be happy to accept a surrender depending on the terms. Honestly, I just want to end this conflict as soon as possible. That went without saying. But there was another, slightly selfish reason why I wanted it to end soon. If what I heard from All Might was constant, then if we returned to my world soon, then it would only be about a few days, a week at most after All Might died. I could finally return and see everyone again. Very well, I believe it would be best for us to begin immediately. First and foremost, we'd like to return the land that was conquered by us as a sign of good faith. In addition, we'll be freeing any prisoners of war that we currently have. Those were rather generous. They just lost a good deal of leverage with those agreements. However, we would like to address several issues that remain ongoing in the world at large, which caused our uprising in the first place. That got me interested. With all the chaos, I hadn't had the time to look for the actual cause of the war that's been going on for centuries. To summarize, we need a solution to the problem of monsters that feast on humans to survive. These species make up a significant percentage of our population and thus are the biggest obstacle to peace. She laid out the problem bluntly. Yeah, I can see how that could be a problem, though not an insurmountable one. Do the humans need to be alive, or birthed naturally? If not, then I may have a solution to that problem. It would have been difficult without magic, but with it, it was a simple enough problem to solve with a little bit of creativity. No, not to my knowledge, though I don't see how that could be tested. How else would you make a human other than through reproduction? Pandora was confused yet interested, hoping that the other worlder had some kind of trick up his sleeve that could solve their problem. Replication magic, as well as a bit of cloning. I went on to explain the basics behind cloning technology, how to grow cells in a laboratory, how to make sure said cells stayed alive, etc. Only the bare basics though, mostly because I was a little over my head as it was. I'd need to do more research later. The replication magic would just help speed things up. So essentially you want us to clone the meat, blood and such that we need while using replication magic to bolster our food supply. But wouldn't that break the third law of magic? She asked me. I was confused by that. Laws of magic. It was the first time I've heard that term. The laws of magic are rules that limits the potential of all magic, or they used to anyway. You've never really followed these laws. Honestly, I freaked out over that at first, but after you explained how things in your world worked along with all those science lessons, I've been able to break them too. Yun enlightened me. The more you know. So it was a knowledge barrier that caused that. That can be solved easily enough. The Demon Kingdom will need to build up or modify their general education to incorporate this knowledge. Hopefully that will be enough to solve the hunger issue. To prove my point, I cut my finger a bit and drained some blood into a cup. From there I asked Yun to cast Replicate, one of her newer spells, to double the amount in the cup. You're a vampire, right? Would you like to test it out yourself? I offered, earning a shocked look from our guest, along with the rest of the natives. Did I do something taboo again? Are you sure, Izuku-sama? Are you aware of what this means? I shake my head, though I have an idea. For a human to willingly give their blood to a vampire, and as a noble for that matter, when a vampire drinks blood willingly given, it affects us differently than blood forcibly taken. She begins to explain. This type of blood gives us a significant boost in power, along with small glimpses into the memories of the giver. This is the main reason why it's nearly unprecedented. It's seen as the ultimate sign of trust, as well as being considered rather intimate. Oh, a small blush came to my face. Well, this just got rather awkward. Don't take it the wrong way. I appreciate the thought behind it, and I'm aware that you meant nothing of it. She waved off the situation while reaching for the crimson-filled cup. She started off slowly, taking a small sip from it, but soon after that her eyes widened significantly before she downed the entire thing in a matter of seconds. Was it really that good? I asked, a little uncomfortable with the way she shivered after drinking my blood. Oh, good is a colossal understatement, Midoriya-sama. That was the finest quality blood I've ever tasted. The mana in it was overflowing. The type was just right. By the gods, even the texture was nothing short of divine. I wasn't sure how to feel about that. Neither was my party, judging from their faces. So, is that a good enough example of what cloning could do? I tried to bring us back on topic. Pandora blinked rapidly, then coughed into her hand, realizing that she'd lost herself a bit there. Why, yes, I believe that was more than satisfactory. Well, that solves one of the major problems so far. A secondary issue we'd like to address is the treatment of monsters in general. For our countries to truly coexist, we request that our citizens be treated as equals to humanity, especially under the law. Done, I agreed, not consulting others on that one. Regardless of the consequences, that was a rule I was willing to enforce. In fact, I'd already done it as far as Axel went. Nobody was willing to argue with him after he announced that all succubi, peaceful undead, and even demons were to be treated cordially whilst living in Axel. The few who even thought about it changed their minds quickly enough with All Might around. Iris seemed to be a bit nervous at that, but allowed it. She knew firsthand that it could be done on a city scale. She trusted my judgment. Not to mention the fact that I wasn't going to budge on that particular issue no matter what tried to stop me. The other nations would most likely try to stop this. Grudges ran deep and prejudice ran deeper in this world. Well, they'd try anyway. Not like they had much choice when Belzerg and the Demon King's army had the vast majority of this world's military force backing them. There was a reason why Belzerg was able to hold back the waves of enemy soldiers for centuries. Not to mention the fact that All Might and I make one hell of a deterrent to war. The rest of his party were nothing to scoff at either. Any one of them could take out a small army alone if they really wanted to, albeit through vastly different means. Pandora was temporarily stunned by my instant answer. Meanwhile, All Might gave me a neutral look. I hope you know what you're doing, young Midoriya. This won't go over easily with the other nations. That being said, I'll stand behind whatever you decide. He gave his warning, which was taken with a nod. I knew that it would be risky, but it was worth it in my mind. I don't know what to say. Other than the cannibalistic monsters, that was the most contentious issue I had. To just make that kind of promise so easily. Pandora slowly recovered from her shock. I can only thank you. There were several other minor issues, but with how generous you have been so far, I'm sure that we can leave them for now. No, I insist. Best to have them all in the open now. If they're that minor, I'm sure we can deal with them accordingly. She seemed a bit unsure at that, but continued at my request. I wanted to get as many issues over and done with as I could. The two prior ones seemed sensible enough, so hopefully the rest will too. We request the right to spread the faith of our two goddesses, Walbach and Regina. She added. My response was instant, easily acceptable under certain limits. All religious conversions must be willing. The use of force or the manipulation of facts shouldn't be used to trick people into believing something. Of course I'd ask the same of you, allowing the free worship of Aqua-chan and Eris-chan, that is. I thought for a moment before adding another clause. I'd also request that religious teaching should be halted until a person reaches adulthood, to prevent forceful indoctrination and such. Again, my swift answer seemed to have put Pandora on the back foot. Thankfully, she was better prepared for it this time. That is more than acceptable. But are you sure that such a policy can be enforced? Religion is quite the touchy subject among humans, she asked, worried over the feasibility of her request. There really isn't much of a problem. All we'd need to do is add a single law. Discrimination based on religion is hereby outlawed. As simple as that. It won't favor one religion over another. It will simply level the playing field, removing government favoritism in the process. I'm sure the king wouldn't mind the addition of a single law in exchange for lasting peace. As for the policy's enforcement, leave that to my party. I'm sure the Axis and Eris cults will be fine with it so long as their goddesses give it the green light. Besides, Walbuk-chan is our ally now. I was planning on helping her anyway. The religious issue really was rather simple to solve when you literally had the gods on your side. The final issue I'd like to raise is relatively minor, or at least I consider it to be. My father has requested to meet you in person. This is by no means a deal breaker, but it would go a long way to burying the hatchet, as it were. I was a bit apprehensive about that one. Meeting the enemy leader like that was risky. Then again, Pandora came all the way here alone, so it would only be fair. One thing still bothered him though. Why me? Or more specifically, why only me? Shouldn't he also be asking for an audience with the king? All might too, since he and I are in similar positions, and the rest of his party for that matter. A good deal of them had political, military, and religious importance to rather large degrees. To be completely honest with you, Midoriya-sama, our king views you as the face of Belzerg at the moment. No offense meant, but the king of Belzerg has never shown his face to us, nor has he done anything of significance since he was crowned. For all intents and purposes, you are this country's representative. That definitely put things into perspective. Surprisingly, Iris hadn't denied Pandora's accusation. Looking at her for an answer, she sighed, trying to collect her thoughts. She's not wrong. The common people have grown fond of you. No, that's an understatement. It wouldn't be much of a stretch to say that they practically worship you. Well, that was a terrifying thought. That kind of attention tended to lead to complications later on. That was one of the reasons that my father was so excited at the idea of us marrying. It'd solidify our position amongst the people along with providing strong blood for the country's future. That part didn't really surprise me. I had read a bit about Belzerg's history, and I was far from the first hero to be chosen as a marriage candidate to the royal family. Not that I really minded at this point. As you can probably guess, we had also planned on giving you a promotion. Expect to be called a Grand Duke in the near future, Izuku-kan. Great. Sigh, at least they weren't calling me God Emperor Izuku. I hope. As enlightening as this conversation has been, I would like some confirmation from Midoriya-sama if he would like to meet my father or not. Of course, his party will be invited. That way the current ruling family will also get a say on the matter as well. She gave her final offer, waiting on an answer. I took a moment to think about it, sending small glances at the others to see what they thought about the idea. Most of them seemed determined to do it. Iris and Darkness in particular were the most excited by the prospect. For very different reasons. If Darkness blush was anything to go by. We'll do it. What time would be best, by the way? I asked, wanting to prepare for it. As soon as possible. We'd like to end this war quickly. Plus, my father has grown anxious in anticipation. Tomorrow or the day after would be best. I even have a group teleportation scroll for us to use. She answered while taking out said scroll. We took a few more seconds to think about it before Iris answered her. That will be doable. I'd need to contact my father first, however. I'll need his permission in order to represent our family at such an important gathering. Pandora agreed to it, deeming it a reasonable and expected request. Since we'll be going tomorrow, possibly the night of, would you like to stay the night, Pandora-san? It's gotten rather late, I offered. Technically, we were still enemies since the war hasn't officially ended, but it would be impolite not to. I wouldn't want to intrude, but if you insist, then I'll graciously accept your offer, Midoriya-sama, she said with a bow, grateful for the hospitality. If I may, I'd like to be shown where I'll rest. Vampires are nocturnal by nature, and I'll admit to being very tired from the trip here. No kidding. I can't imagine what it would be like for a vampire of all things to travel that kind of distance without any magic in the middle of the day. After the others began to leave, wanting to pack up their belongings early, or in Iris' case, visiting the capital herself to ask for permission from her father, I took the time to guide Pandora to her room. It was a fairly dark place. In fact, it was partially underground, with the only window there being covered by some makeshift curtains that I created earlier. Appraising her room with a careful gaze, she nodded, thanking me. Apparently the underground location was the correct choice. It reminded her of home. Rest well, Pandora-san. Hopefully this will be the last time we'll meet each other as enemies. I said my goodnight and headed off. That was more awkward than I thought it would be. It's been another rough week. Hopefully it will be the last one for a while now. Though I know that's just wishful thinking. I thought, trying to calm myself down. I'd need all the rest I could get for tomorrow. After a good night's sleep, the party got together for breakfast. Each of us ready to start the day and prepare for the night. Iris, Darkness, and Yun Yun couldn't stick around for long though. Each of them went to speak to their respective fathers for permission to negotiate on behalf of each of their factions. I wished them luck and went to the guild hall to do my own business along with All Might and the Goddess Trio. Megumin chose to sleep in for the day since we were going to stay up for quite a bit. And finally Pandora was still in the basement. She planned to wake up an hour before we were to leave guild hall. And that's why we need you to help negotiate peace as a representative of the whole Adventurers Guild. I finished my explanation as Luna predictably downed about 4 shots of what I could only assume was whiskey. Honestly, she took it better than I would have a few months ago. Okay, I think I'm good. Give me a few hours, I need to contact the higher-ups. Luna calmed down before heading towards her office, which I have no doubt had some kind of communication magic that she'd used to speak with whatever executives own the guild. I really should get to know the organization better after we make peace. Should we invite Wiz-san and Vanner-san as well? They are former members of the enemy army, so bringing them might further cement your position, young Midori. All Might asked, slightly amused with Luna's reaction to essentially being chosen as one of her country's representatives. Good idea. We might as well include Sylvia-san as well. I'll teleport there later today. For now, let's head for Wiz-chan's shop for supplies along with those two. Peace talks or not, it was best to prepare for the worst-case scenario. We were already good on holy water and such, but some anti-necrotic ointment could come in handy. Wiz's shop. I'm in. Meeting my former employer as an ally of his former enemy. Watching 2 young, mostly inexperienced girls play at being diplomats for a whole country. Getting a chance to mess with the rest of the gods. My young friend Izuku-kun, you have given me the opportunity of a lifetime. So yeah, no need to say that Vanner was quite hyped up. Are you sure I should be there, Izuku-kun? I wouldn't want to mess up such an important event. She seemed worried, though I just gave her a blank look and then pointed at Vanner. Yeah, if anyone was going to cause problems, I doubted it would be Wiz. Alright, if you think it would be for the best, then I'll join you. To be completely honest, I'd like to thank the Demon King for the chance he gave me, even if it was mostly just a pact of neutrality. I owe him at least that much. Most human kingdoms wouldn't exactly accept a lick. His agreement to keep her identity secret in exchange for holding up his barrier was rather generous. My face quickly grew a frown before it slowly turned into a soft smile. Of course, and don't worry about having to keep that secret for much longer. One of the points the king and I agree on is that regardless of race, everyone should be given a fair chance. She returned my smile along with a quick hug before we both went our separate ways, both needing to prepare for the night. Finally, I had to go to a place I never thought I'd visit. A place that my companions wasted no time in teasing me about. Ara Izuku-kun, taking us ladies to a place like this. Have you no shame? Eris teased me while All Might, Aqua and Walbach just gave me confused stares. Look, these guys have been here since before we took over the city, so it only seems right that we give them the option to join in on the peace talks. Besides, having a succubus on our side might help us show that we're serious about supporting equality between humans and other races. Though I guess having a lick, a chimera, a devil, several goddesses, and the Crimson Demon clan would have done that already. Succubi. That explains the brothel. If you all don't mind, I'll be heading out. KH Lo would kill me if she knew I walked into one of these. With that, All Might made the smart decision of walking out of the establishment at SAP, leaving Izuku alone with the goddesses. Smart man. If I didn't know any better, I'd give you a 5-second head start myself, Izuku-kun. Though I need to ask for Aqua-senpai's sake. Does Kazuma-kun come here? Eris asked. I just raised an eyebrow at her. Right, stupid question. Of course he does. He actually didn't after that succubus incident a few months back, but Aqua didn't need to know that. The sweetest revenge is the type where you get your 2 targets to go at each other after all. At least that was what Kachin always said, with much more vulgar language. Speaking of which, Aqua was the second to rush out of the place with a red face. For different reasons to All Might, obviously. This left me with Walbach and Eris. Oh, and the succubi who were seconds away from throwing themselves at me. I should get on that. Calm down, please. I'm happy to see you all again too, but I need to speak to your leader. There's an important event going on involving the city and the country at large, so I thought it would be best to include her. The succubi were a bit put off by the fact that I could ignore their charms so easily, many of them pouting at me. Thankfully, they got serious quickly and let us in to see their queen, so to speak. Ah, Izuku-sama, to what do I owe the pleasure? The white-haired succubus queen, Lilith spoke sensually, desire clear in her voice. Then again, it was a succubus, so that was a given. My children said something about an issue that involved the whole country. That's quite high profile for little ol' me, don't you think? She asked, a bit confused about what I wanted. I don't think so. You've been in this city longer than I have. You deserve to be part of the peace negotiations just as much as I do. I reassured her. Peace negotiations? She asked, even more confused, though her blush showed that my words got through to her. With the Demon King. He officially surrendered yesterday, I explained, further stunning her. At this point, she just stared at me slack-jawed and wide-eyed. Are you okay, ma'am? I asked in concern. This had never happened before. When? How? It hasn't even been 2 years. This was going to take a while to explain. Not that I disagreed. When I started this journey, I would have thought ending this was in a little under 2 years would be a naive dream at best. About an hour of explaining and rejecting succubi advances later. Thank you again for your cooperation. I'll see you again later tonight, not in that way. Geez, okay, goodbye all of you, I said before shutting the door to the cafe. Sigh. Every time I visit this place, I barely get out in one piece. Sorry you two had to see that. Two slightly traumatized goddesses hugged each other as we left the establishment, slightly shaking at what they just experienced. How? Why? Why were they all so thirsty? Don't they know that one man can't handle all that? Walbach questioned. Who she was asking was a mystery, though, as she stared at the sky. I sent them a pitying look. Most people reacted that way after the succubi spoke what they wanted to do with me out loud. Oh, Izuku-kun could handle it. Trust me, I know. The real question is why they were so thirsty for him specifically. Aren't they supposed to chase down the sinful? Eris questioned this time, face reddening at the implications. Okay, I'm going to put a stop on that now. Apparently the succubi are attracted to the two extremes, innocence and decadence. Apparently I'm enough of the former that it excites them, something about a rarity among men. I deadpanned. I wasn't about to be labeled a pervert by my own girlfriend. That was Darkness' job. Though I'm confused as to why I'm part of the other side of the spectrum, I'm far from innocent anymore. A spicy cinnamon roll is still a cinnamon roll, Izuku-kun. I can see why those husses would be attracted to it. Eris slowly recovered before gaining a gleam in her eyes. Oh boy, I don't think I'll be sleeping the night after our negotiations. Or the following day for that matter. Or the following night. I'm gonna die. Oh well, I could think of worse ways to go, like exhaustion for example. Several hours later, for the last time, Eris-chan, save it for after the peace talks. You're making everyone else uncomfortable, and Darkness passed out twice already. I tried my best to dissuade the corrupted goddess on my hands. Surprisingly, it wasn't the goddess of sloth and hatred, or the alcoholic one this time. Speaking of which, I'm back. Sorry about nearly being late. Kazuma-kun had a horrible case of drowning, so I had to heal him 5 times. He'll be fine by the time we leave, don't worry, she said in a sickly sweet voice, sending shivers down most of our spines. I may have gone too far with that revenge plot. Did I miss something? Pandora's voice emerged from the basement, slightly confused over the sight she came upon after waking up. Is this a bad time? Oh, and who might these people be? I recognize my former fellow generals, but what about the blonde and the succubus? She questioned, though the latter had a pretty obvious explanation. No, it's fine. We've just had a bit of a long day. Luna-chan here is the representative for the Adventurers Guild, while Lilith is the queen of the local succubus faction. They'll be joining us in the peace talks since it heavily involves them as well, I explained, earning a surprised but happy look from Pandora. Guess I was right about involving the succubi being a sign of good faith. That's perfect. It will certainly win over some of your detractors within our kingdom. Now, if you are all ready, then allow me to prepare the group teleportation scroll, Pandora requested as we all headed towards the living room, giving us a good amount of space to teleport without taking any pieces of furniture with us. Mass teleportation. And once again we were teleported in the blink of an eye, right in front of the Demon King. Again, in what I could only assume was the throne room, considering it was twice the size of our mansion's living room on its own, along with being rather barren except for the king's seat. I swear to the gods they keep doing this on purpose. Was this a power play, or was Pandora just pranking them? And if I'm being perfectly honest, I was leaning towards the former when I first looked at the Demon King in all his glory. A tall, heavily armored man with bone-white hair and a complexion to match. He was wearing armor very similar to Pandora's, with the sole difference being the large crimson ruby in the center, a billowing red king's mantle attached to it, and a ruby ornate crown atop his head. All in all, he cut quite the imposing figure. Said image was immediately thrown away the second he opened his mouth. Welcome to my kingdom. 'Tis a pleasure to meet you, Midoriya Izuku. The same goes for you, lovely company, the Demon King said, a thick, clearly fake Romanian accent, and with the way he addressed me I guessed his origins almost immediately. So you're a reincarnate too? I'm going to take a wild guess and say that it wasn't the gods that brought you here. Or if they did, it wasn't one of the traditionally good ones. Well, just kill all the fun. Put the fun in camps, why don't you? he said with a pout, followed up immediately by Kazuma. Yeah, you fun Nazi. I have a feeling that there's a reference I'm not getting. Different universe? He asked, confirming my guess. I thought as much. Nobody from my old world could possibly be that strong. Though with time shenanigans being what they are, you never know. For example, I'm from a basic vanilla Earth during the 21st century. I was summoned here centuries ago, yet all the other reincarnates that come over are still from roughly the same era. That certainly is weird. I'm gonna have to ask the gods about that later. It was a Hellsing abridged reference, by the way. Not that it's likely to exist in your world anyway. I'm assuming superheroes are a thing there. Judging from the cross between Son Goku and Superman, that is your newest party member. I got both those references. Weird guess some things line up while others don't. This is gonna make reference comedy difficult to say the least. I had so many questions going on in my head I barely knew where to start. I took a moment to process what just happened. Indeed, now I know that I called you all here rather late at night and you human normies usually eat at this time, Suo. Snap. Anyone want dinner? The room we were in changed. Large long tables topped with a veritable mountain of food appeared around us. This guy has style. I'll give him that. Hopefully the rest of this meeting will go as well as the beginning of it. After a frankly fantastic meal, our two parties began the peace talks. Okay, now that everyone's fed and watered, and I got the chance to flex my magical swag, of course he was. Let's get down to business, shall we? I couldn't agree more. But first, before we begin, can we know your name? It would be a bit rude to say the least to just call you King for the rest of the talks. I've been curious about this for a while now. Nobody from Belzerg knew his name either from what I could tell. They forgot my name. 400 years of constant war and they forgot their worst enemy's name. My god, I've become the token big bad, haven't I? Damn it, I was going for an enigmatic but still important overlord, but no. Humans just have to have memories the size of, and so he went, ranting for a solid 5 minutes about the disrespect and then getting majorly depressed about being forgotten so easily. I kinda felt bad, to be honest. Kazuma walked up to the poor man and patted him on the shoulder. It's okay, man, think about it this way. You're pretty much the boogeyman of the whole world. Like Palpatine or Vader. Barely anyone in those franchises knew their real names, but they were still super cool. He wasn't wrong. This guy did have quite the reputation, even though most of it was likely false. Thanks, man. I have just been having a rough. Here, really. You can probably guess why. Anyway, my name's Drake, though I've gone by the name Drackle since taking over this country. Again, for obvious reasons. Of course, at least he didn't completely rip off Dracula's name. And his original name made it slightly more forgivable, so I'll let it slide. Speaking of your reincarnation, how did you get here? And more importantly, how did you end up as the king of all monsters? Really, how does someone go about doing that? I was genuinely curious. Well, you see, that's a funny story. I actually wasn't reincarnated. I kinda just fell asleep one day and boom. New body. It was already dead when I got here too, so imagine my surprise when I realized I didn't have a heartbeat anymore. Or a reflection. Or you get the idea. This is starting to sound familiar. From there I found out that I had several followers for some reason, each of which were unnaturally loyal to me. Oh, and I had a daughter. Took me days to get over that little surprise, not that it was an unwanted one. He quickly amended as Pandora pouted at him. Okay, this is getting very familiar. And to top it all off, along with the usual opus abilities that vampires had, I also had access to high-level magic at level 1, and was surrounded by human purist nations that weren't too keen on other races in general. You can see where this is going. Yes, I could, considering that it was literally ripped off from an anime. And it seems like Drake knew that too. So yeah, after a series of unfortunate, hilarious, and somewhat tragic events, I ended up declaring war against the world. And through some black magic, actually a lot of black magic now that I think about it, we managed to survive until now. Hell, we were nearly winning. Until you showed up, of course. And here we are. Two effective leaders who are ready and willing to cooperate for the sake of peace and equality for all sentient races. Since when did my life become a mediocre manga series? I questioned the ridiculousness of it all. About the same time you died and went to another world. Please don't tell me it was a truck that did it, by the way. He guessed incorrectly. No, but the supervillain that got me was about the size of a truck, if that counts. Seriously, how the hell did a guy that big move so fast? How did he even breathe with all that muscle blocking his windpipe? Tractor, Kazuma muttered, not elaborating. I wasn't about to throw him under the bus either. What's with all these homicidal vehicles anyway? Well, that's enough for introductions, I think. Let's get down to the nitty-gritty. Pandora here told me that you guys already agreed to our primary terms. That's good. It makes the rest of this much easier. Easier, yes, but still a long, boring progress filled with legal issues and financial decisions. The kind of things that you'd learn about in an advanced history or politics class. And very boring to sit through and chip in on. boring but necessary. Sigh, this too is a part of being a hero, I suppose. At least it was great practice for Iris. It was her first real experience dealing with a foreign nation. Might as well do it with one that had a sympathetic ruler, former enemies or not. It wasn't like I was really planning on being a politician. Governing over Axel was stressful enough. I'd rather leave these kind of things to Kazuma and Darkness, who were better at it than me anyway. I guess that's one of the traits I shared with All Might, a love of action and direct interference. I understood the value of passive and indirect interference, but they just weren't for me. At about the 2-hour mark, we started talking about our stances on the other nations of the world, to which we agreed on several points. A non-aggression pact with an embargo on supplies so long as they don't agree to our terms on the Civil Rights for All Sentients Act, a set of laws that we came up with along the way. Basically, it was our world's human rights but modified to work with other species. And yeah, our two countries have gotten to the point where we can embargo the rest of the world and they'd be forced to respond or face the threat of obsolescence. Militarily speaking, we eclipse every other nation combined. Magically speaking, Drake's nation has a near monopoly on the higher level stuff thanks to the magically superior creatures that are under their care. The rest belongs to Belzerg thanks to the Crimson Demon clan. Technologically speaking, there's no contest. Belzerg wins, no way around it. Hell, even before I got here, the other reincarnates have introduced indoor plumbing, high-quality clothing, and even video games. They just didn't show it all off to the international community for various reasons. Realistically, it was like comparing two post-industrialization societies to a gaggle of states stuck in the Renaissance. Not much of a competition. With this alliance and the nearly guaranteed support of the nations in the demi-human subcontinent, world peace is a real possibility. Hell, we might even get help from the dwarves in exchange for our legitimate business. Those guys love tech and anything to do with advanced craftsmanship. As for the elves, let's just say that most humans didn't get along with elves on principle and leave it at that. We could take advantage of that. That just leaves one last problem. I'm going to be straight with you. I want off this planet after you defeat me. 400 years has been long enough and I want to change. Was his final demand. More of a request, really. I can understand that, but what about your kingdom? Don't they need you to rule? I asked. He just started laughing in my face. Haha, hardly. I'm a fucking college dropout that just got the job shoved onto him. Sure, I got a few centuries of experience, but that doesn't make me good at my job. It just lets me know when to keep my mouth shut and let the competent people take over. Like Pandora, for example. The old, train a successor then pass on the responsibility like a live grenade routine. And it seems like he made it out to be some kind of honor instead of a burden. Smart man. If your people accept that, I don't see why we can't take you with us. But what about the gods? Don't they kinda want your head? It was a question that's been bugging me ever since we began the talks. Though it wasn't so bad. We did have 3 goddesses to vouch for him after all, so there was still room to bargain. Besides, the gods wouldn't be mad about a peaceful solution, would they? I can take him. Why do you think I've survived for so long? The gods are tough, sure, but they rely on the same leveling system that we do. Your party members, for example. He gestures at Aqua, Eris, and his own former General Walbach. They are all in the high 60 seconds, over halfway towards the level cap. And while their stats are impressive, it's nothing either of us could handle if we used all our skills. The gods aren't unbreakable, just very, very strong. If we show them that we mean business, then we can tip the balance of things in our favor. Call it collective bargaining if you want. That, I could understand, and support to an extent. The gods were far from infallible. Eris' banishment and living with Aqua for so long quickly cemented that idea. I'll try my best, but can't promise much. If the gods are all max level, then I'll probably only be able to take on 1 or 2 on my own, depending on the type, of course. A war god and a god of wine are vastly different combat-wise after all. Yeah, but that's just now. Just wait until you reach max level yourself. And this muscled Machi you have in your party is just as strong as you now. It would be even better if the Belzerg royal family helped out, but that's a bit much to ask, I know. Not really. We have no particular allegiance to any god besides Eris-chan. And now Aqua-chan, and soon I imagine Walbach-chan will join that list. We've always been pretty independent when it came to divine intervention, unlike those theocrats of the Empire. Iris corrected. The 3 goddesses grew smug looks on their faces at the fact that they would be picked over all the others. In that case, I see no reason why we can't help you. I've already come up with several wishes that could leave us all happy after everything is said and done. Speaking of which, how do we contact them for that? They never really made that clear. That would be my job, little green. A voice spoke up from above, catching everyone by surprise. A certain dark-robed figure levitated above them in an armchair while drinking something. Only 4 people seemed to recognize him, though. You, the goddess trio, and I yelled out in unison, before said trio looked at me, wondering how I knew this guy. Drake, on the other hand, was just confused. Who? He asked. Out of the loop, though he did sense a faint trace of divinity coming from the new arrival. Me, the name's Asobi. Good to finally meet you, Mr. Dracula knockoff. I've been charged with the duty of informing you of how to make your wishes upon the completion of your quest. Lucky for you, the big boys and girls upstairs recognized this official surrender as a legitimate way to do so. He confirmed in his usual jovial tone. Izuku-kun, how do you know Asobi-senpai? Eris decided to ask the question that was on her fellow goddesses' minds. He kidnapped me a few months back for a science experiment, I think he called it. I got to see some of my old friends there while they watched various scenes from my past. I explained. Funny how that was pretty par for the course as far as weirdness in my life went, to the point where the trio just accepted it as normal. Ah, good times. Anyway, for your wishes I'll lay down some ground rules. Yes, we were paying attention to your little wishing for more wishes comment. Thanks, by the way, you won me some serious money with that. He whispered the last part to me. At least someone was keeping an eye on the loopholes. Now, for the rules, first and foremost. No wishing for more wishes. Yeah, the higher-ups wanted to topple that Jenga tower before it could become a problem. The second rule is a bit more complicated though. He began to explain, and yeah, I expected that first one. Essentially it says that you can't wish for anything that will go against the free will of other people. For example, if you wish for something to happen to someone else, they must be aware of the wish and consent to it. Otherwise the wish fails. So no wishing for world peace, or an end to hatred, I guess. Finally, and sorry about this, but you cannot wish for anything that is beyond my power to grant. He dropped the proverbial bomb on us as the goddess trio exploded at him. What? X3. The cry was followed by calls of bullshit and shitty elders that I happened to sympathize with. Though having experienced this particular god's abilities, I wasn't too worried. At the very least, he could already grant one or two of my requests. I know, it's dumb. I get it. Don't worry too much though. I may not be the strongest guy around, but you three in particular should know that I have my ways of getting things done. He gave us a smirk as the goddesses collectively shivered. I guess this guy had a reputation. In compensation for changing the rules so suddenly, it's been decided that you'll receive an extra wish along with the ones already owed to you. So for total, I'll give you a week to think things over and get your affairs in order before I return to grant your wishes. Yandi. And just like that he vanished. No, seriously, we just blinked and poof. Gone. How the hell did he do that? Well, that's one problem solved at least. And I know for a fact that he can create portals between dimensions, so one of my wishes is already safe. Anything to add, Drake-san? I asked for clarification. He was kinda shafted to the background in that last conversation. Who the fuck was that guy? What was he? How did he get past my defense? And most importantly, how dare he call me a Dracula knockoff? I mean, it's true, but he didn't have to point it out so rudely. And just like that, his justified rage turned into a pout. I think I've had enough of today. The night after Asobi's attempted abduction, my party plus Drake, who left Pandora in charge of his country while he was on vacation, were in our mansion discussing what we were going to do with our wishes. For the past week we've been debating on what to wish for, and so far we had a whiteboard prepared with 3 divisions. A red rectangle for wishes that are out of order, yellow for debatable wishes, and green for the essentials. Okay, so we all agree that total immortality is off the table? I asked, receiving nods from everyone. I placed it under the red column. I honestly doubt Asobi-senpai could pull it off anyway. That's some pretty high concept stuff limited to the elder gods. Eris confirmed. I thought about as much. Something like that would require soul manipulation as a minimum requirement. A bit above a tech god's pay grade. Okay, so other than a few of those portal makers he always uses, we have biological adaptation, mental adaptation, group eternal youth, absolute honesty, the Sharingan. Really, Megumin-chan. I mean, I should have expected this after introducing her to anime, but still. It's badass and you all know it. Fair. Plus it would be undoubtedly useful if the copy effect applied to other types of powers too. Anyway, on with the list. Multiverse shenanigan cloaking. You know what, I'm adding that to the green section. Who knew what kind of eldritch monstrosities could track our movements if we're not careful? Best to cover up that possibility ASAP. And finally, a genie's lamp. Kazuma-kun, don't be greedy. Chances are Asobi-sen will just send us a genie that will misinterpret all our wishes just to fuck with us. I only met the man twice, but I already knew what would happen if we tried to cheat him with such an obvious trick. Hailing significantly at what might happen when involving a pissed-off Asobi using magic, Kazuma wisely retracted his choice of a wish. What about a wish to make everyone who wants it generally more attractive? Was his backup plan. Giving him a deadpan stare, I just say screw it and add it into the yellow, doubting it would make it to the end. Okay, 2 wishes left. I for one vote to merge the first 2 in order to adapt to any world we end up visiting just in case. Maybe something like ultimate evolution or ultimate adaptation. Do you 3 think he can pull it off? Eris gave the thumbs up. Apparently nanotech was some pretty miraculous stuff. The only tricky part was making it EMP proof, which was harder than you'd think even if it was inside the body. That leaves the last 4. Dice, I asked the group. I'm down, Kazuma agreed quickly, counting on his luck stat. Let fate decide. Megumin, Drake, and Yun Yun pumped up the chuny. Drake having accepted the fact that a vampire lord would settle for no less. You mean Lady Luck? Eris teased, couldn't argue with that. I honestly don't care, they all sound pretty good, was the general consensus from everyone else. Most just wanted to get on with it while All Might was busy daydreaming about returning home. Wow, that is gonna be quite the trip, isn't it? One four-sided die later and Eternal Youth was decided to be the final wish. Could have been worse. Kazuma seems depressed though, so things ended up rather well. When was Isobai going to show up anyway? He said we'd have a week, but he never gave us a date and time. Sup, little green, were you thinking of little Almi? And there he is. Was he a psychic? How the hell did you get in here? We have a triple-layered barrier around the mansion to keep out intruders. Aqua, who was honestly proud of her barrier, whined when it was so easily bypassed. And it's a pretty good one. Your anti-undead feature is perfect. Nothing short of a vampire lord or a true lick could make it through, albeit heavily weakened. Walbach-chan's anti-violence and sloth enchantment prevents any living being from building up the energy to actually do anything. And Eris-chan's luck-based charm prevents this place from being found by enemies in the first place. But you all forgot two little details. The three goddesses deflated even further as their magic barrier was dissected and analyzed by the magic hater. Smiling at this, Isobai continued. First, I'm not your enemy, so half of this barrier's power was lost already. As for the second one, that would be telling. Another deadpan. Now, for Little Green's unanswered question. I'm not psychic. Shounen protagonists like you are just too predictable. Damn it. You know I was trying to ignore that, but if he just says it, it's pretty obvious, isn't it? I mean, come on. Sad backstory. Violent rival type. Superpowered high school. Ice guy syndrome. The harem. Okay, I get it. I make him stop, ignoring the shit-eating grin on his face. Assuming that you've been watching us for a while now, how many of our wishes are you able to grant? His face turned serious for a thoughtful look on it. You were right to take off that immortality wish. Sorry to say, but that's too much to ask even for me. Hell, I'm not even fully immortal myself, so if you do find something that can pull that off, give me a call. Well, that was interesting. It looks like even the goddesses were surprised upon hearing this. Wait, what? The goddesses questioned in shock. What do you mean you're not immortal? That's like our first prerequisite. Walbach continues, though Isobai just shook his finger at them. Now, that would also be telling. I haven't lasted this long by telling people all my secrets after all. Now, about your wishes. He deflected our question. Fair enough, I guess everyone has their secrets. I can grant all of the ones you've chosen. To a degree. Explain. I wanted to get this over with and didn't want to deal with any eldritch BS that may happen if I didn't get all the information. Of course, to begin with, here's a few copies of my portal gun and gloves. Pretty self-explanatory. The gun's coordinates are dialed in while the gloves are thought-activated. He explained while dropping off 5 guns and 5 sets of gloves on a nearby table. Obviously, the gloves work off memories and only work in worlds where you've already been for a decent amount of time. Oh, and I've limited the number of worlds you can travel to with the portal gun. It's safer that way. Can't really help you with avoiding the bigger baddies out there though. Best I can do is give you a limited selection of worlds where the Void hasn't paid attention to yet, which was still several million worlds strong, but meh, for your adaptation ability. He rummaged through his pockets for a bit before pulling out several syringes. Here you go. Just inject them directly into the bloodstream and you'll be good. It also makes you biologically immortal along with giving you a halfway decent healing factor, so that's all 4 of your wishes, plus a little bonus. So he partially granted all of them. I guess it's more than I expected considering what we were asking for. I made the portal guns noob-friendly, so 10 beginner worlds are preset for your use, 3 of which are your original worlds. Isobai explained, further pointing at each of the reincarnates including Drake. They are labeled accordingly, so you shouldn't have any problems. Just, for the love of all things holy, don't take off the safety cap. It will remove all of the device's restrictions as a last resort in case that all 10 of the universes you go to end up compromised. So basically it's the Omnitrix. That's more than good enough, to be honest. Besides, these gloves look cool. Megumin in particular is loving the mix between leatherwork and circuitry along with the purple motif of the portal compared to the gun's ectoplasmic green. Now I'll leave you guys to your own devices. By the way, I have a little surprise waiting for you when you decide to return to your world, Little Green. A pleasant surprise, or at least I hope it will be. Hope you enjoy. Ciao. Just like last time, the second we blinked, Isobai disappeared. No trace of him remaining. Okay, seriously, how does he do that? Does he have some kind of mind control BS that makes us all blink at the same time? Is it teleportation, or was he physically even here at all? Fuck it, I had better things to think about. Like that surprise he mentioned, for example. Time to set up the war council, I guess. You never know what that troll could be planning. Okay, sadly the chapter is over. And if you enjoyed the video, just leave a like and subscribe with post notification. so when the next chapter is ready, you will be notified. Okay, see you in the next video. Bye.